Hello, people. Hello, people. Thank you for joining me all around the world, whether you are in Canada, UK, or in India or elsewhere, even. I am joined by two people I've spoken to before, two very good friends I would consider. That is Kushal Mehra from India. I think it's like 4:30 in the morning, and he's still awake. So big props to him. Thank you so much, Kushal, and from to Armin from the Atheist Republic and Pangburn in Canada. Thank you guys for joining me on this live stream.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Namaste, Sham. Hey, Armin. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure, guys. So the main topic for discussion today, guys, will be about Hinduism. And I think just to give it a bit of context, when atheists or secularists look at Abrahamic faiths, I think, especially within a Western context, they understand how to criticize it because they're all from the same sort of area. They all have the same characters. They all have, the same type of God. But Hinduism, is different. It's an Eastern religion, and it's a different ball game almost. So how do we, as atheists or secularist agnostics, criticize or deal or handle Hinduism? And having this discussion today, I think, is a very important thing. We have Armin from the Atheist Republic, one of the, I think, the biggest group on Facebook for atheists, and we've got Kushal Mehra, who's got a lot of knowledge on Hinduism. So I'm going to open it up to Kushal and ask you a question. You have said many times before that you call yourself a Hindu atheist. Now, for someone from an Abrahamic perspective, it would be sort of contradictory or nonsensical if I were to call myself an atheist Muslim or atheist Christian, because one cancels out the other. So why does this not cancel out in your situation? Why does Hindu atheist make sense to you?
Well, it depends on what you mean by the term Hindu. So if somebody was to ask me what exactly does the term Hindu mean, I would say it is purely a geographical identity. It's nothing to do with the theology or the ideas that people living in India actually, have been following over the years. So if somebody says you are a Hindu, it basically means the term literally comes from the Zenda Vesta, right? So like I've said many times, it was Sapta Sindhava, that was the term in Sanskrit. And basically, people had a lisp apparently, so they could not say sir. So they ended up saying her. So in the Avesta, if you remember, there are a lot of times the word Hapta Hindu keeps popping up. So I guess so anybody across the Indus or in and around that area is a Hindu. So it was a geographical identity. Now, isms and all these terminologies basically come from a very distinct Western way of looking at the world, right? So everything is Hinduism is a Western invention in that sense. So for me, if I look at it, so for me, Hindu is basically a geographical identity. Now, Hindus in this particular geographical landmass, obviously, now Hindus have spread around the world. They follow different ideas or different sects. They contain different sects. So for me, Hinduism is like an Android, platform, and that platform has different apps. Now, a particular app of Hinduism could be, let's say, a Sankhya Darshana. So Hinduism could have different Astika darshanas, and we can get into what is Astika and what is Nastika later on, but I'm just giving you a broad framework. So different darshanas are on that platform of Hinduism, and each and every darshana has their own belief system or their own epistemology or their own dialectics. Now, if we were to talk about Hinduism, it really makes no sense. So when we talk to somebody from this part of the world, this is how I debate them. So if I was to go and debate, let's say, somebody who is from the Sankhya school in India, so I would do this. I would say, okay, I'll study Sankhya. So if I was to study Sankhya, I would have to read, say, for example, a book called the Sankhya Karika by Ishwar Chandra. And then I would sit with them, and Sankhya was a dualistic school. So basically, Sankhya did not have a god, but it believed in two concepts, which are like a Purush and a Prakriti. So it's like consciousness and matter, and the interrelationship between consciousness and matter. Now, I have to debate them on those terms. Now, once I'm done with the Sankhya guy, maybe I come across someone who's a Buddhist or a Jain or Another, let's say there is another school in India which is called Nyaya. So I would debate the Nyaya fellow on their terms. So when we try to use a very Abrahamic understanding on Hinduism, it creates problems, and the confusion stems because you are looking at it from an Abrahamic point of view. I've got no issues with people criticizing Hinduism. I do it myself on a daily basis. My point is that if you're going to criticize Hinduism, it has to be on the structure or on the platform the Hindus actually believe they are on. It's like you can't force the Hindus to change their own platform. And why would they do it? I mean, they would just say, okay, I don't care. I don't want to waste my time. So that's where I come from. I hope that clarifies.
Can I say something?
Sure, please.
I'm hearing an echo. Is somebody using a speaker instead of a headphone?
Kushal, that might be you because I'm wearing headphones.
Okay.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if it's hearing me. All right. So, thank you. All right. So, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? And I'm probably going to be wrong most of the time doing this, but correct me anything that I say wrong. But my based on my experience, when I talk to a lot of Hindus and I ask them about Hinduism and what Hinduism means, usually you get pretty straightforward answers. Belief in, there are some things that they understandably they say it changes from depending on who you talk to, but there are some ideas that seem to be always part of the core understanding. And I know you might want to challenge that, but let me just say this: it seems like when you talk to actual Hindus, they say like, yeah, things that come up, dharma, karma, reincarnation, the caste system, whether they agree with it or they don't agree with it, they acknowledge that that's part of Hinduism. These things come up. These things seem to be associated with Hinduism, but it's mostly when I talk to people that label themselves as Hindu atheists, and I'm still not sure what that means, but we could talk about that as well. Is that they are not the actual Hindus, the ones that believe in the ideology. When you ask them about Hinduism, they acknowledge that this is an ideology. It's not just an identity. It's a belief system. There are some core to it. But when you talk to Hindu atheists, it seems like they are the ones that says, well, there's nothing to see here. It seems like it makes it, they're trying to make it very difficult for you to criticize something because there's nothing even there to criticize. This is a label, a catch-all label for a whole bunch of things that seem to be nothing to do with each other. They're all certain views that are so random that there's nothing that makes them even relevant to each other. So how could you criticize something that doesn't even apply to a set of ideas? It just seems like Hinduism, because it doesn't capture any set of ideas, there's no core belief that covers certain ideas, then it could mean anything. And if it could mean anything, then it doesn't really mean anything at all. And if it doesn't mean anything at all, then you can't criticize it. It just seems like the Hindu atheist method has a sneaky way of getting out of us challenging any, and again, I might be wrong about this. It just seems like a sneaky way of letting us challenge an idea, because there's no idea for us to criticize. It's just like, we say like, well, this is wrong. Or like, well, that's not part of Hinduism. Some Hindus believe in it, some Hindus don't believe in it. Well, that's wrong. Okay, well, because it's just a label based on nothing at all. Okay, so well, let's go home then. There's nothing here to criticize. So, am I?
No. So I'm very happy that you've raised this query, and in fact, what you've come across are not Hindu atheists. In fact, I personally face this problem with a lot of, I don't like to use the word theistic Hindus, so I'm going to use the word Nastika Hindus, because Astika is not necessarily theistic in Hinduism. Astika is slightly more complicated in Hinduism. So this is a very conventional cop-out that a lot of Hindus use. Now, I don't use that. if somebody was to ask me what is the core of Hinduism, because basically the implied meaning, Armin, if I was to understand it, is you're trying to basically ask me what is the core of Hinduism, right? Am I wrong?
Or what is Hinduism? Just what is Hinduism?
Okay, so let's say in Christianity or Islam, there is a universal core, right?
Can we not bring in other ideas and just look at Hinduism? Is that, I think, because a lot of the times when you're trying to criticize Hinduism or even understand it, people just be like, they tell us like, oh, you're looking at it from a perspective of Abrahamic religions, and that's why you're wrong. I like, well, no, because we didn't even mention, even when we don't even mention Islam and Christianity, it's always the people that are trying to educate us about Hinduism. The first line they go to is like, oh, this, it's not like Islam, it's not like Christianity. Like, I didn't even bring up Islam and Christianity. I'm just trying to understand Hinduism.
Yeah, but your question stems from a very inherent Christo-Islamic understanding. So
not really. That's what everybody says. We're looking at a set of ideas. I mean, we just want to look at a set of ideas and figure out if they're right or if they're wrong. That's all we're doing. We're not comparing it to anything else.
Yeah, but once you let me complete, we'll get to that.
Sorry. Go on.
Okay. So, like I said, now when it comes to core, when somebody asks me a question that what is the core of Hinduism, there could be, let's say if there are 6 Astika Darshanas and there are 4 Nastika Darshanas, right? Now, reincarnation as a specific belief, right? Overlaps on 9 of them, does not overlap in 1 of them. Reincarnation as a specific belief. So now if it overlaps on 9 of them, could that be a core of what we call Hinduism? I could say yes, I'm willing to concede that. Now I, as someone who is one of those 10 darshanas, which is the Charvaka darshanas, I reject that. So it is not my core, but I'm willing to concede the point that, okay, reincarnation is one of the cores of most Hindu darshanas or most Indian darshanas. That is a core issue. Now, when it comes to caste as a reality, obviously caste is a problem. Who denies that caste is a problem? Casteism has been a major problem in it.
Many people deny it.
Well, those are the idiots. I mean, I've personally know they are idiots if they deny it. Caste is a major problem in India. Now, the denial comes in a very weird way in India. They'll say, oh no, but Bhagavad Gita chapter number 4 verse number 13 says that, the Purusha Suktam in the Vedas say that. Well, it doesn't matter because there are multiple texts in Hinduism, and if we look at the Smriti texts, the Smritis, they do have a lot of casteist verses too. So it depends on where you pick up and where you choose. So yes, in that sense, Hindus do have this option where they can pick and choose, and they can literally reject a verse and they can dump it, and they can dump a whole text. So I can't blame the Hindus for that. I mean, it's like you can't force a Hindu to follow a particular text. That's just the way they are raised. So that could never be an issue. Go ahead.
I mean, okay. So the reason why I mentioned comparing it to Islam is because even when we do compare it to Islam and Christianity, is after we listen to the examples people bring to us. It's not with the. It's interesting because when people say that, oh, you're an ex-Muslim or you're a Christian, that's why you're looking at it from an Islamic perspective. They seem to pretend to know more about our assumptions more than ourselves. But the interesting thing is that even if we don't have that assumption, usually it's only after we listen to the arguments is that we get reminded of Islam or Christianity, because the cherry picking parts or which parts of the text scriptures to use, throwing a whole bunch of it out and using the other ones. When we point to the hadith in Islam, a lot of people tell us, well, that's not my school of thought, that's the other person's school of thought. We don't consider these hadiths authentic, we consider those other hadiths authentic. That's only after the explanation is given to us is it that we get reminded of similarities to Islam or Christianity or other Abrahamic doctrines. But go on.
Okay, sorry. So for me that would not be an issue at all, because in a very weird way. I mean, we could look at it in a good way or in a bad way. Whatever Hindu scriptures I've studied, it is very interesting. Like, for an example, if you look at even the Manusmriti, I think it was 4.136. I don't remember the exact verse, where, in the Manusmriti itself, there is an option that if you believe a certain set of beliefs are not according to the time and place of your your origins, you can reject the whole damn thing. So it's interesting in that sense. But there are two levels to it, right? There is the lived reality of India, which is pathetic, which is horrifying, and there is the scriptural discussion. So we can have it both ways. But I think whenever we discuss a society, or when we discuss a theology or any religion, we cannot ignore the lived reality and the conditions that people are in that country. I think that's ridiculous. And if we were to look at the lived reality in India, caste is a huge problem. And we can get into why caste is a problem, how it has developed, what are the historical reasons for it. I mean, I meet Hindu apologists that make bogus claims that there was no caste. I mean, genetic data clearly proves it. So last year, there was a beautiful study that was done by geneticists in India. And it was very interesting that, intermarriage within the castes stopped exactly around 1900 to 2000 years ago. So that itself is the biggest proof that caste was a problem in India for the last 2000 years. I mean, I don't know why even that should not be even a discussion in India. It is a reality.
Okay, so do you blame at all? Do you give any blame to Hinduism for the caste system?
Obviously.
Okay, so Hinduism is to be blamed for the caste system.
Yeah, I mean, there is a scriptural link to it. I mean, to deny it is stupid.
Okay, good. Okay. So yeah. So great. So what else do you think? What other problems do you associate with Hinduism? Like what is some problematic teachings that come from Hinduism?
Now, I don't know when you say problematic, what do you mean, in the form of a dogma, or you just mean in the form of unsubstantiated metaphysical claims?
So I think when it comes to if you say claims without evidence, that would be all of Hinduism. But I'm talking about claims and teachings that you think directly causes harm and has caused harm in people's lived experiences because of Hinduism.
Well, I think the biggest one would be caste, or what we call Jatiwad in India. It's not that caste is something unique to India. I mean, hierarchies exist in every society. I think Indians have just achieved a PhD in that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it has been. But by the way, you're muted. I don't know if you know. Valley.
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry.
Don't mute yourself. You laughing adds to the experience.
Yeah. No, it's a very interesting way of putting it. You've got a PhD in caste systems or hierarchies.
I mean, I actually see them. I've seen. I don't know how accurate this data is, but I've seen statistics that it makes India seem to be one of the most racist countries in the world. And do you think it has anything to do with the fact that Hinduism has contributed to that makes India one of the most racist countries in the world?
Well, can you point out to the data? Because I would disagree with Indians being the most racist in the world, but I'm interested in the data. Do you know what the data is?
I don't have it ready right now. That's why I was wondering if you've seen any studies like that. There are a few. I don't. It might be wrong, but I saw some studies that showed India is one of the most racist countries in the world, and I was just wondering if you've seen anything like that, or if it's legitimate or not. So if you don't know, then I don't know either. I'm not claiming to know if the studies are legitimate. That's why I was asking you.
No, I can tell you what I have seen post the colonization of India. And what I've noticed is Indians are obsessed with the white skin. There is a very funny product in India which is called Fair and Lovely. Now, I don't see Hinduism. See, Waleed starts laughing. He knows what the product is and what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I actually just used it before this live stream.
But
here's the thing. So the caste system has also something to do with dark skin, because the lower caste and the untouchables are usually darker people. Is that correct or no?
Not necessarily. I mean, you have the caste system is pan-India, and it has nothing to do with the skin color. I mean, dark skin. I mean, I'm a Northern Indian. I'm a dark-skinned Indian, right? And I'm not a Brahmin by caste. So it's basically, see, a lot of it. I think in a lot of material that comes out as a material of Hinduism. And I want to state it on the record that you're not going to find me defending anything that is indefensible. I mean, I'm not here to defend Hinduism. I'm here to clarify or probably guide people, if anything, about how to go about debating Hindus and how to do this in the right way so that there is something fruitful out of it. So that's my whole aim. I'm not here to defend Hinduism.
Okay, so reincarnation, you consider that it's one of the part of the core, right? That's fair.
Most darshanas do believe in that reincarnation.
All right. So and do you agree that reincarnation is a problematic thing, other than the fact that it's nonsense and there's no evidence for it? It's also harmful.
I don't know how it is harmful. Can you explain? Give me a tangible example of that.
Well, one of the main problems with the Abrahamic religions and any other religion is teaching the idea that this is not your only shot at life. This is not your only chance you get to make things right. This is not your only chance of creating a happy life. You get a second chance. You get a third. Well, apparently with Hinduism, you get more than a second chance. But the fact that this life is not finite, the fact that there is something to look forward after this one, it's a source of, if taken seriously, it's a source of making sacrifices and decisions that is very harmful, very different from what the decision process, the decisions you would have made if you knew that this is your last shot. This is the last chance you have at making things right, at having a happy, purposeful, successful, full of meaning, full of love, full of smiles, full of spending time with loved ones. If you knew that this is the last chance you get at that, the decision-making process in your life would be different. The fact that more Abrahamic religions have convinced us that there is a second life that is more important than this one, that that we need to invest towards is one of the main problems I have with Abrahamic religions. And Hinduism and the concept of reincarnation is basically part of that. By the way, you got a live chat. You want to thank from? You want to?
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to wait till you finish.
Chat. You got a super chat. Yeah, go.
Yeah. So Abdullah Samir, thank you so much, man. Big up to Abdullah Samir. He said, Armin giving Dogma a hard time. So Armin's doing what Armin does, and he's giving Dogma a hard time. So thank you very much, Abdullah. I really appreciate that. So, thank you so much. Sure. Kushal, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, so I actually would disagree with Armin. Actually, that's not how Hindus look at it. So it's very important to explain how the people who believe in reincarnation look at it from their point of view. I think steel manning is very important. When we do that, we should steel man the other side's argument. So I'm going to try my best to steel man the Hindus who believe in reincarnation. It has actually a completely opposite effect on them, because the whole concept of reincarnation in Hinduism is that whatever karmas you do, right, the ultimate aim of the Hindu is actually not to be born again. That's the ultimate aim of every single Hindu who says that reincarnation happens. The whole idea is that, even Buddhism for that matter, right? Buddhism uses this term dukkha. The worst translation or the closest translation in English is suffering. Actually, it's not suffering. It's basically, I don't know. I don't want to spend a whole paragraph on it, but the whole core concept is that, the ideal situation is you
wash up karma. You wash up karma off of you.
So the more good deeds you do, the more you basically skip this cycle of getting involved in so they use this word, I'm sorry, Armin, I'm going to use a few Sanskrit terms first, and then I'll translate it in English so that I state it very accurately. So what they say is that we have to skip this sansar. Sansar basically means our existence, our the cycle of janma and maran, life and death. So the whole concept for them is actually the complete opposite. They don't look forward to being born again as a Hindu. For them, the ultimate aim is actually, I achieve moksha. So I stop this whole cycle of being born again. So they don't look forward to it. So their whole incentive is, I should be a good human being. I should try to do as many good deeds as possible. And eventually I should skip the whole cycle of doing these deeds. I should leave. So Hindus have these 4 systems, right? They have the, when they are born, they have a particular, they call it the ashram vyavastha. So Hindus will have the grihastha ashram, which is when, you know, they have a wife, then they have a sannyas ashram. And I don't know, maybe it's early in the morning. It's completely blanked out. I forgot the first ashram's name. I'm sorry, it's early in the morning here. And then the ultimate aim is the Vanprasth. Vanprasth ashram is the state where you basically leave everything aside, your wife, your children, because you have reached the stage in your life. You're probably a 70-year-old fart. You don't have anything to do. And you leave all your physical attachments. And the whole idea behind leaving those physical attachments is, I want to achieve moksha. So no, actually Hindus don't look forward to being born again. Their whole idea is we don't want to be born again.
No, but that's not what. Okay, so I kind of know that. The thing is, born again means, like, correct me if I'm wrong again. Okay, the idea is like you will achieve nirvana, right, or something
Moksha.
like that. What is,
Hindus call moksha.
Moksha, right? Yeah, but that's still living. That's still you as an entity existing. Just because, yeah, you want to stop the born again process because there's something better. It's still something that it's not like the end goal is to completely disappear and vanish and die. The end goal is to achieve something that is still involves you existing after this life.
They don't exist actually. Their whole concept is when you achieve moksha, the Atman, which is the self, actually goes and merges with the Brahman, which is the divine consciousness, and the Brahman in its pure form. I'm just saying what they claim. I don't believe that.
I understand, but you don't cease existing. You become divine. Is the best way to say.
Yeah, they say they become divine. They say they become nirgun nirakar. So what nirgun nirakar means, beyond any qualities, beyond any shapes and form. So it doesn't really matter. So that's the ultimate aim, when you go beyond all these human attributes.
That's exactly what they say to us about heaven in Abrahamic religions.
Well, good for them.
No, I'm just that's exactly, well, no, not good for them. That's the problem I have with Abrahamic religions. Again, every time we get reminded of Abrahamic religion is because after the examples people give us, they say that in heaven, for example, they tell us in Islam that, well, I mean, again, different schools, Islamic thoughts. Some people are more literal, some people are not. What we were told in school, that all this, all these trees and all these castles in heaven, that's just for ancient and barbaric Arabs that couldn't understand what heaven is. Heaven is really you becoming one with God. Iranians were influenced by Sufis a lot, so that's what they say. You become one with God. You become merged with God. You live as part of God. It's mostly a spiritual state. It has nothing to do with rivers of milk and honey. So it's very similar to what they say, to what they told us. At the end of the day, I mean, I understand that they want the rebirth, that process to end, but they want that process to end because if you're being reborn, it means you still have some karma that you need to wash off of you. The end point is to live as part of this divine or whatever entity. Is still life after death. Just because you are not existing as yourself, that doesn't mean it's still not life after death. It's the concept of life after death. So but I appreciate this steelman, and I agree with you a lot that we should steelman our opponents. But it is still life after death. Don't you agree?
No, I don't think so. It's life after that. I don't know what it is exactly, so I'm not going to give them what they think. I believe in only giving answers for what I hear from them. Look, for me, it's simple. This is my average conversation with a Hindu astika, right? Or a Buddhist or a Jain. So I'm my childhood friend. Like my best childhood friend is a Jain. So, and he's like a practicing Jain. He won't even hurt a fly.
Okay, to me and Walid, that sounds weird because you just said that your best friend is a demon. A Jain?
Oh, Jain.
Jain.
Okay.
Not the Jinn, the Jain.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we need a witch doctor. My best friend is a jinn who's who's over there right now. Right, okay, yeah. Yeah, that would be pretty worrying after the conversation.
You need better friends. Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
So this is my conversation with most of them, most of my Hindu friends or even Hindu scholars. So it always, they'll ask me, okay, you're a Charvaka, right? Yes, like, yeah, I'm a Charvaka. So you say once you're dead, it's game over. I was like, yeah. But then what happens to the soul or the Atman? They won't use the word soul. They will use the word Atman. So what happens to the Atman? So I give them the answer that my body in this current form is my Atman. And once I die, it's game over. There's nothing beyond that. I mean, at least that's what I presume, because I've not seen any evidence of any Atman outside of this. So I just call my physical body my Atman. I try to use their terms so that they understand when I'm talking to them. So that's the thing. But I think this belief specifically, if I was to look at it from a purely bipartisan way, stems from this urge human beings have of what the fuck, man, it's game over once you're dead. I think it all stems from that, and it ends there. But I honestly, I'm going to be fair to Hindus. I don't believe their belief in Punarjan, which is reincarnation, actually makes them harmful or bad people or wanting to hurt someone in any other way. I think I call it in the group of beliefs, which is whatever, man, I don't give a fuck.
No, I mean, okay, so that's actually going to come up when we go to Islamic reform. Nonsense should be destroyed, whether it harms people or not. This is why I have a problem with astrology as well. I don't know how many people have been killed in the name of astrology, but it's nonsense and it needs to be destroyed. So the thing is that even if, when it comes to nonsense ideas, even if they're not hurting anybody, the thing is that people make decisions based on their belief. I mean, not most people, but many of them do. Even if they're not, if you're making decisions based on false beliefs, based on a false understanding of how the world works and how life works and how nature works and how your body works and who you are, you're basically have a map of the world that doesn't at all reflect what reality is, and you're not, and reaching the destinations that you want, if you're basically following a map like that, is going to be very difficult. So the main victims that we're trying to think about are the believers themselves. Not, I think I mean, I'm not accusing you of being this, but I'm just saying that it's a very selfish attitude if we look at people that have a nonsensical belief and tell them that, well, as long as you're not hurting anybody, that's fine. No, it's not fine. I mean, these people, if you manage to convince them that their ideas are nonsense, maybe they would, as we can see, when many people leave their nonsense ideologies, they are thankful. They are thankful for them for being shown a better way of looking at the universe. And given that they're thankful, that means that the ones that we are not reaching out to because we think they're not hurting anybody, we're basically denying them an option, and we're letting them be the victims of their own ideology or their own dogma without actually trying to change their mind for their own sake, not for the sake of us, not for the sake of people that they might harm, for their own sake.
Yeah, I would differ with you on that, because for me, it's very simple. As far as I'm concerned, if somebody has a discussion with me about reincarnation, I would challenge their beliefs on reincarnation on the basis of there being no evidence for it. Right. And if after that they say they're going to believe it anyways, I don't really give a fuck. I mean, as long as they can be model citizens, I'm really not interested beyond that, because to me it's very simple. I'm not supporting their dogma. I'm actually challenging their dogma. But beyond the point, man, a man's got to live his life. So
of course, I'm not advocating for putting a gun on people's head and tell them to renounce belief in reincarnation, right? Like, obviously, we're going to invite whoever is curious to see alternative ways of looking at the world, and whoever is not interested, we're not going to go find them and to force them to be exposed to alternative viewpoints, right? We're just inviting people that want to reconsider. But so, I mean, I think you agree with. I mean, you're challenging them, so that's so you agree with me on that. There are some people that say, well, if the idea is not harmful at all, why even question it? And just like, no, if it's nonsense, it needs to be questioned, no matter.
No, anything should be questioned. Even my beliefs should be questioned. What if I'm wrong? So I think questioning is the prerequisite for human progress. I mean, anything and every idea should be questioned.
So guys, I mean, I think this is a question which I think Armin is trying to ask is, regardless of whether you can see something as harmful or not, if someone believes in it, not just I like the color blue, but this is a part of their religious or world outlook, whether it's reincarnation or whether it's I have to wear a certain type of clothing because it brings me good luck. Now, whether that brings you harm or not is, you could say that may never bring you harm. But if it's a belief that you hold, which is not proven and irrational, should we challenge it and not give you a free pass? That's what I understand to be Armin's question. We should challenge it. We should challenge it. But then I look at it, you know, for me, I try to find answers, whatever I can, from the lens of evolutionary psychology and how we have evolved as a species. And I think the strongest term that we have, the strongest tool we have as human beings is self-deception. I think self-deception has worked the most for us as an evolutionary term. I was fascinated, actually. I was reading about it a lot too. Now, for me, religion is like a placebo. I always look at religion as the worst placebo available in the marketplace of ideas. And obviously, you know, there's homeopathy, which is bullshit. Now, we've tried our best to reject homeopathy. Obviously, it's not working perfectly. The same logic I apply to religion and a lot of unsubstantiated beliefs of different religions. They are like placebos to most human beings. While we can try to challenge them all the time, beyond a point, it's not going to work simply because it provides something to the religious person. And I think somewhere down the line, what I feel atheists, and I consider myself part of that group, if it is a group. I think sometimes
it is many groups.
Sometimes what I have noticed in the atheistic community is the refusal to even acknowledge the value of religion as a placebo or these beliefs as a placebo.
I'm one of those people that refuses to acknowledge the value. Just because something makes evolutionary sense doesn't mean it's good for us as individuals. One example I have for example, like sugar, right? If we were living as cavemen, the fact that we like sweet things, without, you know, given that it's very hard to find sweet things in nature, every time you see something sweet, you just have to eat as much as you possibly can. That makes sense. Right now, the fact that we like sweet things is very harmful. Sugar is one of the worst things for us to be eating. is very harmful to our health. So just because evolutionary our taste for sugar makes sense, it doesn't mean as an individual we should you know, the fact that we like sugar is actually now a very harmful thing. You know, whatever the goal of evolution is, I know I'm using that goal loosely, there's nothing conscious about it, but whatever that goal is, it's not necessarily in the best interest of individuals. It's the best interest of the genes. That's why they call it selfish genes. And also when it comes to religion has an evolutionary direction separate from our gene pool, which is the evolution of as a meme. And again, when religions evolves as a meme, and whatever is useful for religion as a meme is again not necessarily in the best interest of the individual. Something might make a lot of sense for the survival of the meme, but it might, and that's why it became a very powerful tool to use, and that's why certain tribes survive more than others. But it might be coming up as a cost to the individual. And when it comes to the cost of nonsense ideas, even if we see no direct harm to it, one example I give is if you go to did I say astronomy or astrology? I think I misused the term earlier.
You said astrology.
Hmm.
All right. So okay. So if you believe that the your personality is defined by when you were born and what the stars were like in the sky at the time that you were born, if you believe that, you think like, well, let them believe that. That's nonsense. But why challenge that? It doesn't harm anybody. There's no wars waged in the name of stars. But I suggest to you that somebody that believes that is also very likely a person that would believe that vaccines cause autism, right? Because the thing is that if you allow harmless nonsense without evidence, you're also allowing harmful nonsense without evidence, because you're not introducing people to a filter, a logic filter, right? You're not giving them a bullshit radar. And when people are this gullible to believe that stars in the sky affects their personality, then these are gullible people that will be taken advantage of, or these are people that will be that their standard for believing in things is so bad that they're going to also at some point believe in things that are harmful to them, or to themselves, or to people around them. The thing is, whatever nonsense you see, you use it as a way to show people how the way they came about to those conclusions is wrong, no matter what that nonsense is. You can't add, when you don't add the filter logic, whatever ideas come after that, you don't have much control after to be like, okay, well, this is harmful, let me convince people to not believe in this, but that's harmless, so let that one go. No, you lost once you open the gates to nonsense, then you lose all control. The only difference you could have made was at the logic filter. That was the only part that you could have added the filter. There's no other filter. Once you're in that realm of fantasy and fairy tales, everything goes. And when you have magic, you can make excuses for everything.
So I have a question for you. Do you think in a situation like this, John Stuart Mill's concept of the harm principle would not be useful?
No, I am using the harm principle. I'm just saying that I want to reduce harm, and nonsense is basically the best way. If you believe in nonsense, if you believe in absurdities, who's that quote from? You're excusing atrocities. Who's that quote from? Once you believe in absurdities, you're allowing atrocities. The whole end goal is to remove harm. What I'm suggesting is that the logic filter is the only place you could have introduced the filter. You have no once
Voltaire,
you have no
Voltaire.
Yeah, Voltaire. Okay. So the goal is to reduce harm, but I'm saying when people don't have that filter, it's easier to con them. It's easier to take advantage of them. I mean, if you're not going to add a logic filter, what filter are you going to add? Where are you going to give what tool are you going to equip people with to not be conned, to not be taken advantage of? That's the only place you could have made the difference.
Sure.
Yeah, but not necessarily. Well, no, I get it. I mean, everybody has to be eventually, told to use logic and first principles as the basic step of deciding what makes sense and what does not make sense. So I'm not disagreeing on that. But again, at the end of the day, I can only respond to my lived reality. And I always say, I mean, maybe I'm not as hostile. I think my degree of hostility to religion, I'm not saying physically, please don't get me wrong. I'm saying intellectually. My hostility to religion probably is not at your level, is because at beyond a point, I just don't give a fuck. That's my way of looking at life. I just don't give a fuck.
Right. I mean, you're free to not give a fuck, though. I mean, I'm not. It's okay. But I'm just saying, there's no reason why somebody like me shouldn't give a fuck and also be very hostile. I'm not. I know you're not saying that. I'm just defending the concept of being extremely hostile to nonsense. right?
Yeah,
I'm just
I
saying
get
it's
it. I
okay
get
to
it.
be very hostile to nonsense.
In fact, I believe in the marketplace of ideas. If you ask me, there is a place for people like you. There is a place for people like me. There is a place for people like Waleed. We are all different, right?
Right.
And at the end of the day, the world is. I always look at the world as all those food courts in those big arcades or malls everywhere in the world. Everybody is catering to somebody's particular tastes and palate. So you might be catering to the hostility palate. I might be catering to the semi-hostility palate. And Waleed is catering to the brother asked a very good question palette.
Sorry.
Can I ask about karma though? Because one thing I noticed some atheists mention about karma is the problem they have with karma as a direct source of harm. And I don't know if this is accurate or not, or if this is actually a lived experience of people as a result of belief in karma or not. But you could tell me what you think. Is the idea of people thinking that if you are born deformed as a child, or if you're poor, then you must have deserved it. You must have done something in your previous life that makes you deserving of such, of such misery. Is that something you notice or see or you criticize?
See, I have any data for this? Obviously, I don't have any data. How do you map something like this on a data or a survey-based level? But all I can say is I can only react to my lived reality and my personal life. And look, I'm a socio-political animal. I meet a lot of people in India. So I'm in the business of meeting people, but I have never met someone in my life who has said, you know what, this person is born of polio. It is because he must have done something bad in their past life. But I'll tell you what I do notice. So let's be fair.
Okay.
So what I do notice is a very weird thing. I notice this in my own house, outside. If something bad happens, sometimes there is this thing that that famous line, karma is a bitch, kind of a thing. I'm sure you guys have heard it too, right?
Yes.
So see, I'm just trying to be as fair as I can. So I'm just going to give you whatever I have experienced. I'm not saying there is any data or survey for this, because I don't believe this can be mapped on any data or survey. These are just anecdotal experiences. So what I'll see is at the best, but I'll be very honest, I have never met any single person in my life who said, oh, look at this child born deformed. This must be because of their past life. Is this a possibility considering a country of 1.3 fucking billion people? Hell yeah. Absolutely. Have I experienced it personally? No, I have not. So I would be a liar if I said that.
Right. And how many people do lived based on the Vedas or any other scripture, like lived a good or a bad life based on reading scripture? Do people even use that as a source of advice, or just make decisions based on their life based on that, or no?
Thanks a lot for asking this question. This is why I like you, because you're the only curious guy out there who's asking the questions about Hinduism. And ask Waleed. I have said that offline to Waleed too. So this is the crux of the issue. I am sick and tired of Hindus being told that their scripture is the Manusmriti. For goodness sakes, no fucking Hindu house has the Manusmriti. No Hindu house has the Vedas too. At the most, what scriptures you'll see in Hindu houses depends on which kind of Hindu they are. Again, you might be like, what the fuck is he saying? But that's just the way it is. What do you want me to do? So I'm a Northern Indian, right? So in Northern India, you have a weird taboo. I mean, obviously, I have broken that taboo. My father did not like it. We have so Northern Indians are not supposed to have the Mahabharata at home. So at the most, Northern Indians will have the Tulsidas Ramayana. They will have the Bhagavad Gita, and probably some odd house might have the Upanishads. I have hardly seen the Vedas in any house, literally. I have not seen it. I have it because I read them all. So I have it. That's a separate issue. I am not the rule. I am the exception. I have not seen it in any house in my entire family, my extended family, anyone. But when you go to Southern India, right, they will probably have the Bhagavad Gita, but they will have, in many cases, they will have the Thirukural. or they might have the Sangam literature if you're in Tamil Nadu, stuff like that. So it depends on which part of India you are from. They have their own books. Some of them might have a odd Vishnu Purana or a Shiv Purana or something of that sort. But you don't have, this experience of Hindus going around, oh, look, Manusmriti chapter number this says that I'm going to live according to that. That's just bullshit. And I want to bust that myth, because I think we should be fair to Hindus too. I mean, why accuse them of things? There are enough things to accuse Hindus about, as if, why make shit up? That's all I'm saying.
So, but okay, so again, this reminds me of Muslims, because I know a lot of Muslims have never read the Quran. In fact, most Muslims have never read the Quran. In fact, worse than that is most Islamic teaching and Islamic laws and rules don't even come from the Quran. They come from the Hadith. And given how many people, given that the low percentage of Muslims that have read the Quran, imagine the percentage of them, the ones that have read the Hadith, is even lower than that, right? So would you accept this excuse for Muslims saying like, well, Islam is beautiful, even though the Quran and Hadith is bullshit? Well, they don't read it anyways.
So I was actually expecting this answer from you. I was just waiting for you to come back at me with this one. So I'll give you, this is my answer to you. It's very easy to pinpoint which particular text has influenced an Islamic society, because they don't have that many texts. In the case of a Hindu, there are far many more texts. So if you were to say which was the premier text that has influenced Hindu thinking, I would say it's the Bhagavad Gita far more than the Manusmriti. And the Constitution of India in current India. Does that mean caste comes from the Bhagavad Gita? No. So I'll tell you the factors that have influenced Hindu thinking from those Smriti texts. Caste is the biggest one. Caste is the one lingering factor of the Smriti ideology that is there in the Hindu reality. So I've given you the answer. So I gave you the answer perfectly. I was waiting. You'll come back with the Islam one, and I'll give you this answer.
So after the caste, what are the most problematic teachings in Hinduism?
Well, they just have so many beliefs, right? I mean, the Hindus have this unique, weird thing that they're just
like a marketplace. Is like of fairy tales. Like you get to pick and choose whatever you want.
But see, it's a good thing and a bad thing. I'm not gonna say it's a bad thing per se. It's actually a good thing too, because a lot of times, look, I mean, this is the biggest reason that Hindus are not hostile to a guy like me. It is because they are accepting. So
okay. So first of all, I wanted don't give Hinduism credit for people being good people. Give the people credit for being good people.
No, I think you could give Hinduism some credit too. I will disagree with you, but that's okay.
No, because you just said there's okay. So this is tell me if there's I think there's a contradiction here. Okay, because so it seems like when we point to harm, there's nothing there. There's a market. There's so many ideas. There's so many things people believe in. So there is no direct connection between Hinduism and people killing, like Hindus killing Muslims for eating cows or whatever other examples that become. There is no direct experience.
There is.
There is.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to that later. But so you're saying also you said that the Hindus are not reading their scripture and living their lives based on it. So if that's not the case, how are you giving credit to Hinduism for people's good behavior? Sorry,
that's not what I said. That's not what I said. I think you misunderstood me. Obviously, not every Hindu is going to read a Hindu scripture, like every Muslim is not going to read the Quran, but your societal reality is influenced by certain memeplexes, right? In the case of an Islamic society, that memeplex, that group of ideas stems from a box of books that is this big. I'm just giving you a natural metaphor.
Okay. I don't know how many Hindu... Okay, go on. Sorry.
Hear me out. Just wait, I'll get to it. In case of a Hindu societal reality, that box of books is not this much. It's this much. If I am going to blame the Hindu for doing certain bad things because of certain particular or peculiar habits that stem out of that text, why can't I give them credit also, in some cases, I don't see any problem in that. I mean, if I'm going after them for behaving in a certain way for some beliefs, I could go after, I could say, okay, good. You know, you guys are not as bad for these certain things too. I see no dichotomy in that. I see no irony in that. It's perfectly logical. We don't have the concept of abrogation.
Right. Okay. So the thing is that people, you know, here's the problem. If you are being good, okay, because you read some text, you know, I think people are capable of being kind to each other, cooperating with each other. We have all a natural sense of sympathy. We all have a natural sense of wanting to belong to a team, to a group of people that work together for a greater good. We also have some sense of logic. We see the benefits of cooperation. I don't think we need ancient texts. We rely on ancient texts or ancient ideology to get people to do these things. I think people's even when people do mention their text, is because they already came to the conclusion that they feel some warm fuzzy feeling when they do these good things. But after they decided this is for them, they point to their text or scripture, say that it supports it. But it's mostly because of them, not because of their text, that they do these things, right? And I do want to give the credit to the individual that are doing these things, not to their religion, because they deserve it. They deserve the credit. The problem is that when you give the credit to an ideology like Islam, Hinduism, or Christianity, or Judaism, those ideologies, they come with a lot of baggage. They come with a lot of other harmful ideas that, you know, and especially many times the exact opposite of what we were giving the idea credit for, right? And given that those good things are achievable without the ancient texts, or based on people that lived thousands of years before us, that had didn't have a good understanding of how the world works, how our minds work. I mean, you know, we don't need to we could get rid of all that. We don't need all that. I mean, if we are capable of achieving these good things without those without those ancient texts or scripture, we don't need. I don't think we need to give them credit for people's good deeds.
The question is not whether we can achieve them without those texts or not. The question, my point was, we are achieving them because of that. I was just making a statement of fact.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, because I want to put this on Armin, because a lot of times you will hear Muslims say, "Oh, if a Muslim does something good, is, you know, because they're following Islam. If they do something bad, it's because, you know, it's from Satan, or it's because they're not following Islam properly." But you've kind of flipped that and said, if someone does something good, it's from themselves, and if someone does something bad, it's from the religion. So I don't understand what I mean. I'm just playing.
Yeah, okay. So it's not always from the religion. It's many times because they're just fucking shitty people, right? Right. Sometimes it's because of the religion. What's that quote from? Again, I know the quotes. I don't. I forget it. When good with or without religion, good people could do good things and bad people do evil things. But for good people to do evil thing, that takes religion. Who's that quote from? Please don't.
Hitchens.
No. Hitchens was quoting someone else.
Oh, okay. I can check it.
Yeah. What?
Okay.
Yeah, but
so I want to get back at this question. See, I have a huge problem with this. It does not matter whether we are capable of coming up with morality bereft of religion. I'm convinced. I don't need to be sold on that idea at all. I mean, I am in that school of thought that morality is that. In fact, I believe religion comes after that. Religion is basically a byproduct. It's an exaptation. It's not. I don't need to be sold on that. But that does not mean. Okay, I'll give you a very proper example. A set of ideas and a book made X number of people jump on a plane and run it into a building. At the same time, here is my childhood friend who believes in a set of ideas that comes from a set of texts that does not make him hurt a fly. I'm sorry, you cannot deny how they are behaving. They are behaving the way they are.
I think you misunderstood me as well. I'm not denying that some people might use their text as an excuse to do good things, but the thing is that those are not really good deeds. Those are if it truly the unique example. I think most of the time when you see good people doing good things, it's just because they're good people. But in the unique examples, when you're a shitty person and you would have not done this good thing, and you're doing it only because it's in your text, you're not doing a good thing. You're just following commandments, right? You're just following orders, right?
Oh yeah.
It's like a robot. The problem is that if you could convince somebody that to do a good thing only because it's written in an ancient text, you could also convince that same person to do a very shitty thing because it's written in an ancient text.
We are on the same page, because this is my discussion with my friend who's a Jain all the time. I always tell him, you know what, you scare me because you sound so much like the jihadi, other than the text is different.
Right.
and he takes so much offense to that. He takes so much offense to that. He's like, he's like, you asshole, you know me since grade 1. I was like, why do you keep fucking going to that text, man? You're a nice human being anyways. He's like, no, but I became a nice human being also because I read some things in the text. I was like, I'm not denying that, but try to be a nice human being beyond the text. So I'm in total agreement with you on that. But when I was making my point, I was just saying, we should give credit to Hinduism where it's due. That's all I'm saying. We will bash Hinduism where it should be bashed.
But I'm saying that that's not credit. That's also a problem. That's because that's a PR front of religions. You know, when, for example, when Islam says, "Oh, take care of the orphans," right? People are like, "Well, can you add?" Huh?
So what's wrong in that?
I have a problem with that. Because that
you have a problem with orphans being taken care of, or you have a problem with Islam saying that?
I have a problem with Islam saying that.
I mean, come on. So you want them to be evil all the time. You can't see that's unreasonable.
You're not letting me explain.
So this is a typical atheist behavior. We don't care about orphans.
No,
I'm just joking. I'm joking.
No, actually, we eat them. That's why we don't.
Yeah, of course.
The problem is that people were taking care of people. Here's the thing: people are capable of taking care of orphans without Islam. This is the PR front of Islam, okay? Because Islam comes with a lot of shit and a lot of harmful ideas, right? There are some very few sugar coatings here and there, very small, very simplistic, non-nuanced, feel good messages added, as a sugar coating for the poison pill that is Islam. Okay. Christianity has that love your neighbor. Well, unless your neighbor is a witch, then I guess kill your neighbor. Be respectful to your parents. Okay. But if you read that in full, you have to stone the kids if they're not being respectful to your parents. Jesus, people say, oh, he was a lovey hippie, the one that said like love everybody, but he also was the one that told you to hate your family, the one that said that I come to bring the sword, not peace. The problem is that those small little new and simplistic feel good fuzzy messages, even though they're like 1% of the entire thing, they're constantly used as a PR for the entire shit sandwich that is in the middle, right? And I think it's harder to the reason why some other harmful ideologies like Nazism was so easily defeated, like it came and went. I mean, it's still around a little bit, but it's not in power anymore. Within one fucking generation, we managed to defeat it, right? Communism as an ideology is still around, but it's not in power as it was when the Soviet Union was power, because we defeated it. Was an idea that was defeated mostly. It's still around, but it's not as powerful as it was. The thing is that, I mean, communism is even more powerful than Nazism because it has the sugar coating of all people being equal and all that, right? The thing is that these sugar coatings don't achieve much other than making bad ideas survive longer, right? So we should call them out as these are, the 10 commandments of Christianity or whatever positive messages Islam has is nothing compared to the level of nuance and complexity Greek philosophers were discussing in ethics and morality thousands of years before the Quran and the Bible. We, as humans, and independent from religion, as an independent from belief in God or in supernatural. They were discussing it based on the consequences of the actions. So we have proven as a human race that we are capable of discussing these things and come up with good and sometimes bad conclusions, but discussions based on reason. We are capable of coming up with these ideas and philosophy of ethics and morality without these nonsense. Hey, love your neighbor. Hey, take care of the orphans. We have gone way above and beyond taking care of the orphans thousands of years before the Quran was even a book. That's nothing compared to other moral philosophers before the Quran. But anyways,
I just want to say quickly that we've got a super chat again by Satan666, who says,
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Who says, trip some balls on acid, share some with the imam. That sounds like a fun party. So thank you very much. I will use your super chat to do exactly that. But I just want to maybe move the conversation in a slightly different direction. I think we touched on it beforehand, but this is something that me, Kushal, I think you've discussed with either Haris or the Apostate Prophet as well, is that on some level, and we just spoke about this literally now about the orphans and whatnot, there is some utility in your religion, i.e. structure. We can say the structure is good, bad, change, reform, blah, blah. But people do see utility in it, and this is probably going to lead on to the Islamic reform discussion as well. If there is utility in it, if there is something which is makes certain societies gel, and of course I'm not saying it's perfect, and yes, it is. It can tend towards oppression and domination, but there is some utility on a personal level, on a societal level. Do you want to scrap the whole thing?
Yes.
If so, what are you going to replace it with? And if you're not going to replace it with anything, I mean, going to like a country that is deeply religious or community and saying, okay, there's no point in going to the church on every Sunday and meeting your family or the mosque 5 times a day. No point in praying, or that is all useless. It's all BS. It's all crap. It's all a waste of time. Then comes the inevitable question: what is the meaning of life? And atheists do not have a one answer for this question. They don't have a one morality for this
because
question.
there's not one answer to it. But
I agree. So then we are left with the problem: how do we pick up the pieces? And this is a question which I think the reason we haven't not sufficiently answered this in the West is one of the reasons why there is a rise of someone like a Jordan Peterson, who I like, and I admire him for many things he says, but I obviously disagree with him on religion. But this is why he has risen to prominence, is because these questions have not been answered sufficiently in a secular context. And he is using biblical stories and archetypes to give those answers, which have higher value and higher currency, and that resonates with a lot of people, including myself.
Before we get to this, can I just bring one more thing about Hinduism, something that annoys me when it comes to defenders of Hinduism, and I just want our guest here to answer that and see if he gets annoyed with as well or not. One thing I noticed when you talk about Hinduism, when you want to shit on Hinduism, first of all, a lot of people tell you like, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to behead you. You can shit on Hinduism all you want. But then they proceed by telling you why you shouldn't be shitting on some right after. But the thing is that they say, well, at least we're not going to kill you for criticizing Hinduism. At least we're not going to blow you up. And I'm like, really, is that our new standard now? Do you want a medal for not wanting to behead me? Congratulations for being better than people that want to literally murder me for my views. Like, is that the level that why is it that people keep saying like, what? This is another thing people say, well, at least it's better than Islam. At least it's better than Islam. And I tell them, can you tell me what's not better than Islam? I mean, if you're comparing your ideology to Islam for it to look good, that's a pretty shit ideology for you to have to compare it to Islam. I mean, what doesn't look good when you compare it to Islam?
So here's my So here's my
Sorry.
no, I just have a counter. So I'm actually fascinated. So you think comparisons per se are bad? I just
no. Comparisons are great. I love comparisons.
Okay.
I guess a lot
So
of
it's
shit.
just that when you compare, okay, so when you compare to Islam, it becomes bad.
No. I compare a lot of things.
So
the line of argument.
Yeah.
I compare Nazism to Islam. I compare Christianity to Islam. I compare Hinduism to Islam. The line of reasoning is that it's okay because it's better than Islam. That's the problem, because there's a lot of things that are better than Islam and are still very harmful.
Yeah. So for example, if I'm a bad person and I'm a murderer, and I say, well, at least I'm not Hitler. I mean, that's not doing me any justice or any favors. I'm not portraying myself in a good light if I have to compare myself to one of the worst human beings, in the world, for argument's sake. So when you say, well, at least I'm not blowing up I don't know, Twin Tower or whatever, flying planes into Twin Towers, he's saying that's not a very good argument.
Well, we could look at it in two ways. That so there are there are different ailments. So if you look at religions as different kinds of ailments, I don't know why I should not be relieved. I mean, as a disbeliever, I think I get relieved that I stay in a country that is relatively Hindu majority. I don't know why I should not be happy about that. Yeah, so I think I will compare Hinduism to Islam and say Hinduism is far better than Islam.
I agree.
Yeah, so
but that's the same way. That's the same thing as saying AIDS is better than cancer. I rather get AIDS than cancer.
I was just going to get to that. In fact, I was just going to get to that. What happens is that on one end you have cancer, and one end you have a different kind of an ailment. It's still an ailment. Now, does that mean that the difference between you and I is not what the ailment is? The difference is, to get rid of the ailment, do I cut my hand off, or do I keep my hand but I just use some kind of medicine and keep the hand there? Are you trying to understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but so, as you know, sometimes you do actually need to cut the hand off.
Yeah, so in that case, I say we don't need to cut the hand off in Hinduism. That's my answer to you. I think that's being fair, right?
Are we promoting Sharia law here by saying cutting the hand off? I just don't understand.
No, Sharia law cuts people's hands off that are healthy. We cut people's hands off that their hands are infected, and it's going to spread to the entire thing. No, but I would say that you need to cut the hands off as long as the hand is nonsense. You could be much less harmful than Hinduism, even Hinduism, and I think you still should cut the hands off. But let's go to what Veedu was saying, because that's a big topic that I don't know. You just opened another can of worm that I could speak to for another 5 hours.
I'll tell you why, because I have heard you speak on multiple occasions, and look, you have to get it. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not from a Muslim background. So in this case, when it comes to Islam, I come from a place where I won't say I don't have skin in the game, because I do have literal skin in the game, because any disbeliever when it comes to Islam does have skin.
Yeah, you're worse than most disbelievers, because you're not even Ahlul Kitab.
Yeah, so it's like, I always say this to my friends, I was like, when they come to kill, they'll kill me first, because I'm Hindu and atheist. So they'll kill me first.
Right. Well, you're not ex-Muslim, so you have that going for you.
So my question to you is, and I try to look at this from a very dispassionate view. Again, for me, religion is an exaptation, right? So our brain evolved to crave structures. That's how, we evolved as a species, right? So religion basically piggybacked on that need for structures, and it became the strongest. It is the strongest game in town. Now, we can call it a parasite, we can call it a virus, or I like to call it the strongest game in town. Now, I was looking at surveys and data, right? So it was very interesting. Have you ever heard of this thing called the Burning Man in America?
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Yeah. So I was looking at the data of the people who attend the Burning Man. It really fascinated me. And bear me out, I'm going to take 2-3 minutes. So I was just looking at the demographics of people who attend the Burning Man. Interestingly, 50% of the people who attend, and what the Burning Man is as a Hindu, to me, that is basically pagan iconography all over the place. I mean, Believe me, we do that in India, where we have a Ram Leela, and eventually Ravan is burnt, and the Burning Man was so similar to any pagan ritual. It was quite interesting to me. And 50% of the people who attend the Burning Man, I mean, people can look up the data. They have the afterburn report where they do share the demographics of the people. 70,000 people attend it every year. They have a fixed quota of some sort because they cannot manage anything beyond 70,000. And then there was a recent Pew poll, and they were sharing very interesting things about beliefs in America, where they said New Age beliefs are making a comeback. So there were 4 specific New Age beliefs. I think it was astrology, psychics, everything is matter, and there was one more thing. I'm sorry, I've forgotten it. And 22% atheists and 56% agnostics, and 8 out of 10 people, I don't have any religion kind of guys, they believed in these beliefs. So what I look at it, again, from a very dispassionate view, as someone who's not into all of this, I'm not into the booga booga. What I look at it is, there is something that people crave at the end of the day, and it attracts them. And do we sometimes, when we as skeptics or atheists or disbelievers or whatever, I call myself a dharmic skeptic, whatever tag we want to give ourselves, when we try to smash the edifice of religion without replacing it with something tangible, do we do ourselves as a species a big, disfavor?
No, we're not. Okay, first of all, so there's 2 things happening here. Okay, first of all, the people that tell you that the medicine that is being prescribed to you is nonsense. Is not this does not always have to be the same person that gives you actual medicine, right? If you are signing up for an insurance company, and I used to sign up with them, and my house burned up, and they did not pay, and I realized this insurance company is a con. It's a con job. It's a scam. And now you, as my friend, is signing. What is happening? Walid, are you okay?
Walid is under attack.
Sorry. I just
the Muslims in London get to you?
No, my bad. Sorry, it's I just hit the radiator. Sorry, go on.
Okay. Imagine if the screen came back and you had like some Muslims in the background with a sword around Ali's name.
Oh boy.
Oh my god. Okay, so what I was saying is so if I come to you and tell you that this insurance company is a scam, I know it's a scam, don't sign up with them. You tell me well, do you have an insurance company? Are you going to insure my house? I'm like, no, I don't have insurance. I just know this insurance company is a scam. I'm like, well, if you don't give me an alternative, then why are you taking this away from me? Well, because it's a scam. You could go find another insurance company. That's your job to go find another insurance company. I'm just telling you that this is a scam. So it's very interesting to me when people come to atheists and tell them to give them an alternative, as if the people that are pointing out what's a scam has to be exactly the same people that provide you an alternative for the false promises that religion has made to you, right? If I am telling you that religion is not the solution to a desire for, here's what religion promises or says that it offers, right? And these are actual needs that we have. And if religion has done one thing is to show how important these needs are, right? We have a desire for purpose. We have a desire for community. We have a desire for having a sense of belonging to something greater than ourselves. We have a desire for awe, for inspiration, right? These are all real things. These are all real desires that we have, and it needs to be address, and something needs to supply these demands, right? So religion has taken over all of this and has claimed monopoly over this. And people say, well, without religion, who's going to give you these things? First of all, religion does a shitty job in offering all of these things, right? And not only that, it has made it, a lot of people say, well, if you take these away, it's going to be hard for us to offer them. I tell you that it's actually because religion has claimed a monopoly over offering these. It is the reason why it's become hard for us to offer these in a much more scientific way, with a better understanding. We have a much better understanding of people's minds, of how our psychology works, of how the universe works, and we can address these in much better ways today than using the Goat Herder's Guide to the Galaxy, right? So, and the thing is that in some countries, the offering the supplying these demands has been forced by the governments to become for it to come from a certain religion. So religion has such an unfair disadvantage where it's really hard to compete with it, right? And even your tax money is going towards this. In other countries where they are not that theocratic, they still have unfair advantage because the churches or the mosque, they don't pay taxes. They get laws passed that helps them. In a free market, they have an unfair advantage, which makes it hard to compete with them. But in the few examples where we have both free markets and religion has been completely taken out, the market has done a very good job in offering all of this. We don't see people losing purpose, losing a sense of meaning in Scandinavian countries. We don't see them not finding ways to make their life feel fulfilled or find a sense of awe. In fact, we're seeing them doing it better than everywhere else. The fact is that without religion competing with the market and other people, when there's a demand for this, other people will come and offer it as a service very fast. In fact, these European countries, did they not exist for thousands of years with religion? How long did they take them for them to cope without religion? They're doing just fine without religion. People are not committing suicide in Scandinavian countries because there's no religion. They don't have this, none of those things that people scare you about without religion is going to happen. It's not happening. It's not happening. They come up with institutions and organizations and services that fills in the gap really fast. Anyways, go on.
So I have a counter to that. Then why do you think Jordan Peterson is so popular now and he's gaining popularity even in Europe?
Well, the same way religion, because the same reason Christianity, because it's okay. First of all, it's easier.
Sorry, but he's getting a lot of popularity amongst secular or atheist types as well, not just Christians. That's what I mean by even secular atheist types.
Yeah,
right. First of all, I just because somebody is an atheist or claims to be a skeptic, that doesn't make them logical or right. Okay. The thing is that somebody like Jordan Peterson is giving credit to an ideology that has always been against free speech, against human rights, against individualism, and he's giving credit to all these Enlightenment values that was a movement in Europe against religion, against Christianity, and now somebody like Jordan Peterson is coming and giving credit to Christianity for all the great things that the Enlightenment brought us, and people are believing in it. Well, people are not smart sometimes. I mean, why is it popular? Because it's easy to make claims. It's easy to make nonsense sound profound. People want. Here's what I will acknowledge: the Enlightenment values that we got from the 1800s in Europe. They did an amazing job in actually making people's lives better. But they did such a great job in giving us better health, lower mortality rates for children, better, more clean food, many more free speech, values that a lot of us take, rights and values that many of us take for granted today. It brought all of that. But it didn't do much in the marketing department because it didn't seem necessary, because it was pretty obvious where all our rights and values are coming from, right? But it seems like, given how easy it is to take all these fruits of the Enlightenment values and just how easy it is to just give it to Christianity for some reason now, how easy it is to claim that and people will just believe it. It seems like we need to do a better job at the PR front when it comes to Enlightenment values. And actually, one book that I suggest is Steven Pinker's Enlightenment Now. you could see that you will see how people's lives got better because of right ideas that was not based on ancient scripture, was not based on divine authority. It was based on people seeing what works and using it and making millions of, and if not billions of people's lives better. Many people came out of poverty. Many people are not in pain right now because of these ideas. And these ideas did not come from any ancient script or any god or any, you know, Sufi master or anything. And these were based on logic and based on our understanding of how the work works and how we need to use our understanding of how the world works in a way to make it better. We only need our sense of sympathy and our logic to be able to do these things. We don't need any ancient script. And the thing is that people say, well, why haven't we offered that? Like Valid, you mentioned that. Like why we haven't done a good job but we have. All of you are enjoying it today. These Enlightenment values has affected us all. Most of us wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't because of these ideas, right? It's just that people don't take it for granted. The people mentioned in here, the scientists, the people, the activists that fought for these ideas, each one of them, if you read this book, you can see each one of them have done more for humanity than all the saints and the gurus and the Sufi masters and the sheikhs combined. They have, each one of these people have done more for humanity than all of them combined. We just need to introduce these ideas and these people to the rest of the planet, and we need to do a better job at doing that.
So before I let Kushal comment, I just want to say that I'm not denying that all these Enlightenment ideas have transformed the world. I'm saying that they've transformed the world, but somehow we still manage to give religion credit, and that is the department. That's the department that we are lacking in, and it seems like you were saying, either it's because they've got a monopoly. Actually, they do claim a monopoly, especially the Abrahamic faith. You know, without God, nothing is. You know, there is no meaning in anything, whatever. But I'm saying, when it comes to building a narrative, religion and those stories, myths, have a very good way of creating narratives and selling it to you and hitting these archetypes and whatever you want to call it. Where are the humanistic, secular, non-religious stories, archetypes that are competing with religion? So we can credit the Enlightenment thinkers. So we can credit those people who actually made our lives better, rather than saying, well, in the Bible, it talks about free speech and individualism. In the Quran, it talks about charity and women's rights. How is it that we are attributing those things to these books when actually we have to fight for most of the bloody time we fight for our rights against these religions, and these religions have actually kept us back, but yet they seem to get more credit than the guys who fought against them,
because religion has done a better job at the PR department,
right? And this is what and exactly. So I'm saying, is there something inherently within the religious discourse or language that the currency of religion, in terms of the words it uses, the poetry, the artistry, so on and so forth, it is better equipped? Me and you can talk about, you know, DNA molecules, or you know, that might inspire some people. But if we talk about, you know, a story from the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran, that, oh wow, man, he, you know, did this and did that, it's just more appealing. I mean, is it just simply down to lowest common denominator kind of thinking? I don't know.
I mean, one thing you mentioned is stories, and I think like religion has done a very good job in using stories, and we haven't done a good, like these.
No.
I mean, we haven't done a good job at using stories. Like people, you know, like this book is full of charts and data and facts, and that doesn't get people's attention as much as like a story about, like, I don't know, like a prophet that went and, you know, told a whole bunch of lions to not eat him, and he was so holy and the lions didn't eat him. So that people prefer listening to that than me showing how many people were saved, how many people's lives were saved because of this idea. Like, look at this chart. Nobody wants to listen to that. So maybe we need to, like, acknowledge that there's a better way to communicate with people. Maybe we need to find our story. Yeah.
Oh, I agree with you, and I just want to say this last point before I want Kushal to come into the conversation. And this is what I think Kushal was referencing before, that even though these agnostics and atheists, like, they become New Age or astrology and all this kind of stuff, is because they're just changing one story for another. Okay, fine, I don't believe in God. Fine, there's no heaven and hell. But I still want to hear a story. And if I'm not going to go to the Bible or the Quran for a story, I'm going to get my story from someone else or some other source, you know, which claims to be secular or whatever. So I'm saying this is why people like Jordan Peterson have done so well. And I'm not trying to bash the guy. I like him a lot, and I really enjoy listening to him. Even the stuff that I don't agree with, I still like listening to him. But when it comes to stories, you've got to admit they've got a couple of thousand years on us, easily, probably 10,000 years on us, and we've got a lot of catching up to do. So this is my thought. I haven't fleshed it out fully, but what I see Jordan Peterson doing, and other even Muslim theologians who are like academics and are sensible people, but they still call themselves Muslims, they're using Enlightenment tools, or Greek philosophy and so on and so forth, things that are completely secular, and they are projecting them on religion, and they make it look better because the stories are already there. Some stories are very good, some are very bad. Either way, they're very powerful narratives. So they're using these tools. I mean, I'm talking about the sensible ones anyway, are using these tools that Enlightenment thinkers or Greek philosophers have, or Indian philosophers or whoever, that they've managed to find, and they're using these tools on religion, and people look at religion and say, wow, this is incredible, man. Religion is so beautiful. Whereas where do we project these tools on? We haven't necessarily got an atheist Bible or Quran. So this is where we are lacking.
But okay, first of all, this notion of this whole thing being atheism, some people, some Muslims in your live chat also said, like, I mean, these ideas, these Enlightenment values are not atheist ideas. I just want to say, and I want to push back on what you said, Valid. These are not atheist ideas.
Again, non-religious,
non-religious. It makes sense. But the thing is that a lot of people say, well, what does atheism has to offer? Like, atheism is not supposed to offer. Atheism is just a lack of belief in God, right? Yeah. Me telling you that your insurance company is a con by itself is not going to provide you with insurance, right? Yeah. When we go and look, when I find out that your insurance company was a con, now the process of, that's one thing. Me going out now and now finding a better insurance, that's a different thing. So me figuring out that religion is bullshit is separate from now us going out and finding better answers than religion to our problems. Atheism by itself is not supposed to offer anything. Atheism is nothing but a lack of belief in God. But go on, sorry.
Before we go on, I've just got a super chat. I want to give a shout out to Mubin Ahmed, who says religion does a shitty job at giving people meaning and purpose, but it does give it. Enlightenment values doesn't even address it. People are not logical. That's precisely the point I'm trying to say. So, for example, you've just said, you've given the salesman example. Now, you've said to this guy, your insurance is a con, and he's like, okay, are you going to offer me something? And you say no. So what does he do? He goes to the New Age guy. He goes to the Deepak Chopra. He goes to Jordan Peterson. And now you're standing there saying, hey, this is also rubbish as well. And then he says, are you going to give me something? And you say no.
Well, no, but I tell you, you need to go find. Okay,
who?
You need to go
find. This is the problem.
No, this is what we tell them. This is you. I just know this is a con. You need to find out what's not an insurance that is not a con. You can't be the people that are point to you. But sometimes it could be the same people, right? Like I'm telling you, like go look at the Enlightenment values. But often they are not. You can't expect the same people that are telling you what's a con to be the exact same people that are offering you a solution. That's a very high expectation to have. Anyways.
I understand that. Yeah. So before, so I've said this I've said this for like the third time now. I'm gonna let Kushal come in, but let me just say this: one more super chat from Uday, and he says, Kushal, what is the biggest threat to India? Anti-Hindu, leftist media, urban Naxalism, or right-wing Hindu lynchings? Salafi Islamic terror. We'll answer that question in a bit. Before that, I want to get Kushal's, who's about to fall asleep, his opinion on what we were talking about just earlier. Me and Armin. Kushal, please go ahead.
Yeah, so to begin with, I have read Steven Pinker's book, and I've read criticisms of that book also, because I don't think so when it comes to Enlightenment thinking, it's not so simple. They were all hunky-dory and nice people. They had a lot of flaws and a lot of No, I'm not saying you said that. I'm just adding to what you said.
Right.
So now that I've clarified, I'm not saying you've said that.
Okay.
There were a lot of bullshit Enlightenment thinkers too, and it's not like Enlightenment thinkers were devoid of any religious beliefs. They were very much, in fact, what I extract out of those Enlightenment thinkers, and in my case, a lot of Hindu philosophers too, is that human progress is a constant process. Human progress is, you keep on testing ideas, some make sense, some don't make sense, and Enlightenment thinkers were also part of that process. There's nothing that we cannot say that was not going to happen. It was eventual what was going to happen. It's part of human progress, but it doesn't solve the core crux of my issue. Atheism, we all know atheism does not have a positive doctrine. That's the whole point. It does not have a positive doctrine. I mean, to say I don't have a positive doctrine, well, I know that, that's why I'm not coming to you in the first place. So it's like, I know you have a problem, my dear friend. I'm not going to solve it, but the product you have is very stupid. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going with stupid. That's the answer we get every time. And it does not change anything. So in fact, Enlightenment thinkers were, in a way, what they were trying to do is, hang on, they were mildly religious people. That's what I call the Enlightenment thinkers in the West, mildly religious. So they removed the booga booga, or they tried to remove what they thought was the booga booga, and they added some evidence-based claims to it. I mean, they used some of the Greek claims. They have even used some Eastern claims, by the way. I mean, Hume was also interested in Buddhism, so it was very interesting. My point is, it is always going to be like that. That's all I'm saying. It's historically there. Look, the Hindu darshana I belong to, Charvak, is one of the oldest darshanas in India's history. Literally, it was in the Rig Veda too. But the point is, we've always been a fucking minority in this country. Obviously, we don't have a product that's good enough.
You know, it's an Indian stereotype to want to always give credit to something coming out of India.
It's not. If there is something older than that, I don't have a problem. But if it is something is there in India, well, too bad. You have to deal with it.
Right. But here's the thing. Actually, it's the fact that Enlightenment thinkers are flawed. That's a great thing to always acknowledge, because they're not divine source. That's the whole point of part of Enlightenment thinkers, is that things need to be reevaluated. They need to be improved. That nothing is set in stone. And in fact, when you say some of them are religious, of course, the thing is that the source of their ideas are not religious. Even when it comes to the enlightenment that the Islamic world went through, like a lot of Muslims always come to you and say like, oh, the golden age of Islam. And I always tell them, no, it wasn't the golden age of Islam. It was the golden age of Arabs and Persians, because they went through a golden age in spite of Islam, not because of Islam. Okay, these were their thoughts and ideas had nothing to do with Islam. Okay, they are they did science because they were scientists, not because they were Muslim. Okay, they came up with brilliant ideas and sometimes shitty ideas because they were thinking about things logically, not because they pulled anything out of the Quran. Okay, the point is, the source of the thinking process behind the ideas, not the religion of the people that believe. I mean, the idea of Big Bang came from a Catholic. Okay, that doesn't mean Christianity supports Big Bang or like evolution. Darwin was a Christian, right? That doesn't mean Christianity supports evolution. The thing is that the thinking process is the proper way. It's based on logic, but it's based on evidence, it's based on facts. It doesn't come from the fucking sky. Okay, it doesn't come from this revelations from somewhere inside you. It's the process that we're worried about rather than the people, right? Even the most if you apply the correct process, even the most crazy people can come up with right conclusions. But go on.
So here's I bring you back to the question which we had started to discuss, which was Islamic reform. So you seem to be charitable to Enlightenment thinkers and their memeplexes and their ability to reform, and
not the thinkers, the Enlightenment ideas, not the thinkers.
Well, that's what I said, memeplexes, right? So the Enlightenment memeplexes can evolve and change and, become subtle as and when society challenges them and new evidence comes in. Why are you not willing to give that same flexibility to another set of memeplexes, i.e. religion? If they use bullshit mental gymnastics, and I agree with you, they are bullshit mental gymnastics, but if they pick and choose and they reject certain verses, I'm just giving you a hypothetical. Tomorrow there's someone who says that, Prophet Muhammad could have been a human being with certain bad qualities, but he had certain good qualities. So, I'm going to reject his bad qualities and I'm going to come up with an Islam 2.0. I'm just creating a hypothetical with you, Armin. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. That's all I'm doing. So why are you so hostile to that, but you're okay with the Enlightenment memeplexes to go through that process? If we are about ideas and ideas going through what I call a churn, then why not Islam?
Well, I mean, because it's flawed and nonsense from its very core. The thing is that when we're talking about Islamic reform, you're comparing it to just jihadists and fundamentalist Muslims wanting to kill each other. At the end of the day, when you tell me like, oh, my prophet was a good prophet, he believed in this and that, it's my God is like believed in this, so why is what's wrong? Like that's an improvement. To me, it seems it's the same as saying like I have the Cookie Monster under my bed, and he wants me to share cookies with the homeless people, right? You're like, well, that's a positive message. Go share cookies with the homeless people. I'm like, well, yeah, that's nonsense. There's no Cookie Monster under your bed, right? At the end of the day, the whole thing is based on nonsense. It's based on claims without evidence, right? And the thing is that you think that, you're saying, well, it's at least it's better than harmful version of Islam. I'm just saying you don't have any control when you lose the bullshit factor. You don't have any control where that lands. The most Muslims that want this whole reform version of Islam are Muslims that were already never going to kill anyone. These are people that were already good people. Okay, they just want a version. They just want a version of Islam that matches their idea. It's not they're matching their ideas based on Islam. These are good people that are desperately want to believe in a scripture that matches good people, matches their good nature. So you're not getting anybody. Nobody went from wanting to kill people or wanting to be against women's rights, and then you showed them something, the Quran, and you changed their mind. Even the reformists themselves were influenced by ideas outside of Islam. The so-called Muslim reformists, this is their reaction to Islam being challenged as an idea. It's not because they went and read the Quran again 100 times and they decided that, okay, now I think everybody was wrong until now. It's even the process of reform is a reaction to attacking Islam as an idea, not people actually wanting to change it. Look at see the so-called reform of religions like Christianity and Islam. It's a defense mechanism, right? It's a defense mechanism it's not a self-reflection on the ideas themselves and people willy-nilly deciding to improve things. It's the world around them becoming better and coming up with better ideas, coming up with more valuable ideas, that and then trying to stay relevant. And they just change,
So my question to you, Armin, I agree with you that reform is a process that is stimulated from outside of the religion. No one wants to change, and they only change at a great cost. I understand that. But if someone, let's say, for example, recognizes, maybe there are certain things within my religion that are holding my people or holding my country back, and I will reform it, I don't see a problem with that. Yes, you could say
see a big problem with that.
Okay. So yes, the whole apparatus or the whole core ideology is false, not based on evidence, blah, blah, blah. Fine, I get that. But if someone wants to make a tangible change in the right direction, if you have a Nazi, I'm going to give a very extreme example. And yeah, I'm not saying Islam or Christianity is like Nazi or whatever. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if you've got a Nazi who's saying, I kill 100 Jews a day, and he says, you know what, I'm not going to kill them. I'm just going to hit them on the hand every day. I'll be like, great, that's a great start. I'm not saying I'm for Nazism. I'm encouraging Nazism. But if he wants to tone it down a bit, I'm more than happy for him to do that.
That's a great example. Okay.
If he wants to tone down his Nazism, more than happy for him to do that.
No, that's a great example. But was it the Mein Kampf that convinced them to be less harmful to
whatever it was? It could be Mein Kampf. But like you said, by the way, when you said Mein Kampf, but how many of them actually read Mein Kampf? The same way how many Muslims even read
That's my point. That's my point, though. Because when Muslims start becoming like, we have many Muslims that defend secularism. We have many Muslims that support gay rights. We have many Muslims that support women rights. We have many Muslims that support democracy. Is there anything in the Quran, the Hadith, any of that? No. Okay. What I'm saying is that when Muslims do that, give the credit to the Muslim, give that credit to that person. In fact, don't even say, the thing is that you can't reduce Muslims to just Muslim and nothing but Muslims. There are many other reasons why these people are good people. It's not just Islam. These people are good people because of their own nature or because of other competing ideas. You know, Muslims are not like robots where you
that's fine.
Put Islam in a code and they just follow it, right? We all have competing ideas in our head. Whatever Muslims do that is good has nothing to do with Islam. If Islam has any influence on anything they do, it's a negative influence. Muslims are often better than Islam, and when they do things that are better than Islam, give the credit to the individual rather than giving it to an ideology that has always stood against all these good things they do. Okay, the thing is that when you are giving the credit from the good actions of good Muslims to an ancient barbaric ideology, what you're doing is you are part of that sugarcoating for that poison pill. You're making it die harder. You're making it more resilient. You're part of the PR that makes this meme so hard to kill. When Bernard Russell said that the religion is the dragon that is standing between us and the golden age, I tell you, when that dragon, when it's injured and it looks like it's dying, then maybe turn into a puppy to tell you that it's harmless. No, you fucking kill that puppy, okay? That, because if you don't kill it, that when it's weak, you step on it, okay? When it's injured, this is just a phase. This is just a disguise. This is part of the trick that this meme gets to survive. This is why Nazism dies faster than religion, because religion has these the interesting thing about the text when it comes to Islam and Christianity is the vagueness of it. So whenever it's in defense mode, you're like, hey, no, I can behave, I'm not that bad, look at me, I can be peaceful. But it never behaves like that. Once it gains influence and power again, it will become the same ancient barbaric thing that used to kill gays and apostates like us. Okay. It's the same thing. Here's the thing, when it's in that defensive phase, you have to acknowledge that it's a good thing that it went into the reform defensive phase, right? But because it's being challenged, but don't give credit to it for it, because it itself is not responsible for being there. And because the source of it is not from within and from outside, you ramp up that pressure from the outside, even when it's that weak. You know what I mean? Even when it's in that phase. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Sorry. I'm not talking about credit. I'm simply saying if they are on that process.
Wait, that woman in the live chat is saying, so you atheists want to kill puppies. Remember this guy.
Yeah. That's what we've gained from the conversation. Yeah. That's what it's about, killing orphans and killing puppies. But I'm simply saying, give the credit to the individual if you want. I've got no problem with giving credit to individuals. Religions aren't people. You know, religions don't do anything themselves. It's the people that make it good or bad or whatever. Okay, fine. But if someone or group say, you know what, we are going to reform. If tomorrow a group of Muslims said, you know what, Armin, we are secular Muslims, we don't believe in Sharia, we don't believe in any hudud punishments, all that kind of stuff. For me, Islam is I pray 5 times a day, I fast in Ramadan, and I don't drink alcohol and a few other things, whatever, dietary, whatever it is. Do I like fine, great. And I will give the credit to that person. Fine.
Right. That's why I'm saying say reforming Muslims. Don't say reforming Islam.
Okay.
Because Muslims can reform and Muslims do reform. Muslims reform by moving away from Islam.
Okay.
Islam can never reform. Islam is always an ancient barbaric ideology that needs to die. Muslims reform every day.
Okay. Kushal, you've heard a lot.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna hog the limelight.
Go for it. Go for it.
Go on. Yeah.
So this is my problem. Whenever we make these arguments, we think like atheists. We don't think like believers. And the first step when we discuss this issue, always remember you have to steel man. Think like the other side. The other side.
We were the other side. But go on.
Hang on. You will have your say.
Okay, sorry. No, but yeah, okay. I just wanted to add that. We were the other side. But go on. Sorry. No more.
So you might tell the religious person that this is you, my dear friend. This is you, my brother. This is you changing. But here's the fucking problem. It's not good enough for that person. It is never good enough for that person. He always and she always wants to fucking give credit to the booga booga man in the sky or the booga booga book somewhere. That is the problem. And this is where atheists make the mistake. They don't understand the theistic psyche. You have to understand the theistic psyche. It is all good to say, oh, it is you who's changing. The motherfucker does not want to accept it. What do you want to do? What are you going to do then?
Is that a cue for us to get in?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all,
I love it, mate.
Because I thought you were gonna go for longer because we spoke for so much. I was hoping. Yeah, I
was waiting.
I was hoping that you get because I felt so selfish because we spoke for so long and you didn't. So I just wanted to make sure.
Hashtag booga booga. That's something which I want to start.
That's the best part of this conversation. I'm gonna use that. Is that okay? Booga booga. That's basically the same thing as woo. I think the Western term for that is woo, right?
Yeah, woo woo, yeah, woo,
woo woo, yeah. Okay, but booga booga is more fun.
Yeah.
But okay. So first of all, many of us do give up on the Sky Daddy, okay, the fairy tales and the religious doctrine. I mean, me and Walid are examples of people that used to be Muslim and now we're not, right? First, that's the first thing. First of all, and second of all, that's happening more often than people becoming reformist Muslims. Okay, you have to understand that when reformist Muslims want to inflate the numbers, they look at all the peaceful Muslims and add that to their numbers, right? But all those peaceful Muslims, they're not reformist Muslims, okay? They are more than just Muslims. They are many other things other than Muslims. Most Muslims, just like most other people, don't think about philosophy. They don't think about politics. They just live their fucking lives. Most Muslims are thinking about their careers. They're thinking about whether the paint on the job matches the furniture, what car they're gonna buy next, what clothes to wear in the next parties. That's what's consuming most people's lives and most Muslims' lives. So they are living peaceful, healthy lives because they're just people, not because they're Muslim or not because they're not Muslim, right? When it comes to influencers and decision makers and people that actually consider these things, then that number remaining, those people remaining, then things look very differently, right? People that take Islam very seriously, they're either fundamentalist Muslims, or they're reformist Muslims, or they're ex-Muslims. And this reformist Muslims now their numbers look a lot more thin than when it compared to people that looked at scripture, didn't like it. Most of them decide, okay, this is not for me, fuck this shit, I'm out. Okay, compared to reformist Muslims, the so-called reformist Muslims audience is mostly non-Muslims. They're not even preaching to Muslims because they're part of the PR front of Islam. That's why the reforming Islam, the so-called reforming Islam, is such a dangerous thing because it's a very thin sugar coating which serves to basically make you swallow the whole poison pill. It's a PR front to the outside world rather than actually convincing Muslims of anything. They use a lot of peaceful Muslims to convince you that it's working, but those Muslims are not part of the reform movement. Those are just people living their lives. So most of the people that find the scripture problematic, they end up leaving it rather than coming up with this reform arguments. So the ex-Muslim, that's why the ex-Muslim movement is growing at an astronomical rate compared to anything in the reform movement, and it's getting a fraction of the attention because it's not very PC. That's the first. A lot of people say that, oh, you think 1.6 million Muslims are going to leave Islam? We better wake up. Like, no, that's not going to happen. First of all, most Muslims are just either nominal Muslim or minimalist Muslim. Nominal Muslims are people that are just Muslim by name. They don't do anything Islamic. Minimalist Muslims are Muslims that just do the very basic thing, like pray 5 times a day, fast during Ramadan, and then it's just like brushing your teeth. And other than that, Islam doesn't even cross their mind throughout the day. So that's most Muslims. But here's the thing: if given that how ex-Muslim movement is growing so fast, you have to understand that a society will change very significantly if you go from 2% atheist to 10% atheist. The force for secularism, the force for pushing back against religion's ideas, the force for religion having to take a back seat, all of this, if you can accomplish that, it's not an all or none game. You don't have to go for 100%. Going from 2% to even 5% is such a major accomplishment. Not even 2% to 5%. If you could convince one person out of their delusion, you have changed that one person's entire world. But even less than that, if you can convince, so people say, oh, atheism is too much. Reform is a baby step. It's the middle ground. It's good enough. First of all, it's not a baby step. It's a step in the wrong direction altogether. It's just basically replacing one nonsense with another. It's selling people bullshit. It's atheists getting involved in selling people religion. I didn't know atheism stood up for that. Atheists stood for that kind of nonsense. It's just basically telling people like, hey, I don't like your nonsense. Here's a different set of nonsense, because with this set of nonsense, you're not going to hurt me. And all I care about is you not hurting me. But I don't care if you're still delusional. As long as your delusion is not affecting me. That's nonsense. We have to fight bullshit wherever we find them. Anyways, but the thing is that even if you want babies, people say reform is a baby step. You know what's a better baby step? It's a more intellectually honest baby step, and a baby step that works even better than so-called reform is doubt. Doubt, because even if you don't get atheists out of Muslims, we get many people that used to be, or religious people in general, we get, with our conversation with religious people, we get a lot of people that used to be 100% sure about their ideology. Now they're 99% maybe sure, or 95% sure. That's huge progress. Nobody's going to sacrifice their entire life to something that they're only 99% sure. That's a win. And not only it's a win, it's intellectually honest. It doesn't involve us lying to people about their scripture. Oh, this verse that tells you that you should beat your wife. Oh no, it actually means you should tickle your wife. Nobody is going to believe you. Everybody can tell that you're bullshitting them. In fact, Muslims are not going to take you seriously because they could tell what they could see what it actually says. And it doesn't, you don't need, this is a process that doesn't involve you lying to people about what their text is telling them. So, and even, okay, you want even a smaller baby step. Doubt is too much. You think that's too extreme. When you have conversations with Muslims or Christians or everybody else that is religious, you go from a position of them still being 100% sure that Islam is true, or still being 100% that Christianity is true, to a position that, they still believe that, but they used to think that atheists were idiots, atheists were horrible people, atheists were like, they probably have horns on their tail, they're just demons. And now they're talking to him, you have a discussion with them, you still disagree, but they don't hate you anymore. They still think, okay, maybe this guy is an idiot, he's an atheist, he doesn't understand Islam, he doesn't understand anything, but he doesn't seem like he was an asshole. Maybe not all atheists are assholes. Maybe we shouldn't be mean towards atheists. Maybe we could accept them. Maybe we could live side by side even if we disagree with each other. So
I would like to push back on this.
Okay, go on.
So I have a genuine query. So I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. So there is an underlying assumption of what reform should be in Islam. You're assuming that none of the verses can be rejected and removed, and there cannot be any 2.0. Why?
I think this whole idea of you getting verses down from the heavens is already problematic altogether.
But why? Why restrict the level of mental gymnastics only to level A? Why can't it be beyond level A? I just don't get it. I mean, I'm not able to wrap my head around it, because a lot of Hindu reform movement has been literally rejecting the text, ad infinitum. We reject it, throw the verses out. We don't accept it.
No, so here's the thing. It's just the process is more important than the direction, right? You might be like,
that's does matter, right?
What?
It does matter, right? What if some reformist comes and says, the wife beating verse in Surah Nisa, right? It was in the fourth chapter, right? In that one. And I reject that. And I don't accept that. What if somebody comes tomorrow and says, they do the biblical mental gymnastics where it's not the literal word of God? So why can't that apply to Islam? I'm not able to wrap my head around that.
No, here's the thing. If somebody says that, I'm not going to tell them that, no, you should beat your I'm not going to go tell this guy to go beat their wife, okay? What I'm suggesting you do is don't give credit to the Quran for this man not beating their wife. That's what I'm suggesting. Don't tell this. I'm sorry.
Sorry, just one more question. Here's the problem that I've noticed in every time, I find religion is very arrogant. And try to get, because it's part of your answer. So I want you to add this in your answer too. But religious people are very humble in a lot of ways. I find I'll tell you how. Sometimes it takes a lot of delusion and humility at the same time to surrender to an imaginary deity. And they always are that there is a sense of humility there. If you want to be honest. I find it there is some sense of humility along with delusion, but they want to be, the whole theory of wanting to surrender has an element of humility in it. So my problem is that when we try to give them credit, the reason they don't take the credit is they don't want it. Now you can give me the answer.
Okay. First of all, when I want to give them credit, is not to satisfy their ego, but for us to acknowledge where the source of change is coming from. I'm not giving the Muslims credit for their progress because I want them to feel proud of themselves. I mean, that's good if they do feel proud of themselves, but the main purpose is for us to acknowledge why stuff is happening. Okay, it's what's happening is not people actually. Muslims are not beating up their wives until they read the Quran and then they stop beating their wives. It's most Muslims don't beat their wives because they don't want to beat their wives, and they're coming up with excuses for why the verses actually doesn't tell you to beat your wife. Okay, or more common is that they don't even know what the verse is telling them. Right? But okay. But I lost my chain of thought. What was I getting at? Before you interrupted me.
No, you're basically saying what you were trying to say was religion. This was your basic point, that Islam cannot be credited for that. And what I was trying to say is why they credit Islam is the reason, the whole humility factor.
So what I'm saying is that the destination is not the only issue. The way you get there is also the issue. Okay. It's much easier for me, and much more productive, as we have seen, to convince people that these texts might not be from God. Maybe, even if they almost are sure they're from God, just that seed of doubt is so easy to slip it in there, right? Then to convince them, first of all, the mental gymnastics that you're referring to, we know it's a lie. So we're advocating to actually lie to people, to tell them that this verse means something else, right? To go around the mental gymnastic of telling them, first of all, this verse doesn't tell you to beat your wife. And now you have to do the same thing, the same mental gymnastic for 1,000 other verses and hadiths. Good luck with that. Okay? Good luck with that. You know how much text there is in Islam? You think it's just the Quran? You mentioned, like, you showed the size earlier, it was this much. If I put all the hadiths together, you know how many books there are out there? you have to make the same excuse. You have to go through the same gymnastic arguments for all of them. And also, you're going to look ridiculous. They can see that it doesn't mean that. It's obvious that it doesn't mean that. You're going to be here. The example I give to people. So here's the thing. It's not productive. It's not going to work. It's not very efficient. In fact, not only it's not going to work, if you look at the stories of the reform leaders themselves, if you read their stories and read their books, they weren't convinced that these ideas are wrong because of the Quran or the Hadith. It was other thinkers that convinced them, and then they tried to reinterpret the Quran. So if their source of if they were convinced based on other sources, why are they prescribing the Quran and the Hadith as a source of change to Muslims themselves, these Muslim reformers, right? But the example I give to people is like, imagine like two fictional worlds, the Harry Potter world and the Star Wars world, right? And we know that these are, by the way, I'm totally okay with enjoying fiction. I love Islam as an atheist more than as a Muslim. As an Islam, I can enjoy Islamic history, Islamic scripture, because I look at it as part of history and part of culture rather than actually believing in it. It's much more fun. Islam is much more fun as an atheist. That's what I tell. Like, just the same way that a Mayan historian can enjoy Mayan history and Mayan culture without actually believing in human sacrifice, right? But because fiction is fun. But here's the thing. If you look at the Harry Potter world, and you look at the people that are in that world, and they're writing fan fiction, like the people that enjoy the world, and they have a lot of internal rules in this world. Like, even though the whole world is made up, it has an internal logic to it. It has some structure within it. And imagine if they're discussing, like, this wizard, for example, in one of the fan fictions, he cast a spell. And then people are arguing that that's impossible because this wand didn't have dragon tears in it. It's impossible to cast a spell like that without dragon tears inside your wand. And then that they're having this discussion here, and then somebody comes and says, well, then another wizard showed up and he pulled out a lightsaber. People are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, they will laugh this guy out of the room. Like, they will kick him out, because even though there's some disagreements within their world, this suggestion is so out of mainstream that it doesn't even fit in. So when you come in and you say this verse that says that you should beat your wife actually means you should walk towards her, that's the same as bringing a lightsaber into a Harry Potter world. That's how weird it is and how out of place it is to the Islamic scholars and Islamic thinkers and to tafsir, commentary, and all of that, right? And now you have to bring 1,000 other lightsabers in places where they don't belong in many other verses. But I'm saying, if you get an attention of a Muslim or a religious thinker, it's not easy to do that. We all have our YouTube channels, our websites, our books that we write, and it's hard for us to gain an audience. Whenever you try a method, you can't just look at the cost of you gaining the audience. You also have to look at the opportunity cost, because whatever arguments you're using at that time is at the cost of not using some other arguments that were more efficient, that were more helpful. And what I'm telling you, it's much easier to get convinced people that there is a chance that they're wrong than to convince them that all these verses and all these tafsir and all this hadith means completely something else. You're going to get a bigger bang for your buck, for your time, for your investment, for your resources, for your YouTube channel, for your book. It just works better. And more importantly, it's honest. You're not lying to people about their own text.
Well, again, so my counter to you for that is, so I've been trying to understand what these Muslim reformers say. So I came across someone who said, so there were two types which I found very interesting. One was where they only go by two hadiths, which is the Bukhari and the Muslim. And there was one more type that said the hadiths are just basically 200, 300 years after the Prophet had died. So we cannot take them as an authentic document, and we reject them, and we only consider the Quran as the authentic. Yeah, right. The Quranists, right? Now I'm going to take a parallel from Christianity. Obviously, Christianity had the reform, Christianity had the rejection, and we saw secular humanism coming in, and we basically the edifice of the church was pretty much destroyed. But in spite of that, after the success against religion, we see the comeback in the form of a word salad of Jordan Peterson.
Right.
I've read Jordan Peterson's book. I read Maps of Meaning. I genuinely sat down and read that book. It was 600 pages of I don't know what. I could not, basically, I was like, what is happening here? But I get it. I still get it. I get what's happening there. And I have always said this, that so you smash the edifice. I'm not against smashing the edifice of religion. But what I'm saying is, all I see is it comes back in a new form and in a much more refined form. In this case, where there is a nice,
Oh, come on! It's Jordan Peterson is not as big as the fucking Catholic Church used to be. Like, he is just a little bit of a tiny bump in the road.
Yeah, he is a tiny bump in the road. But the point is that there is something that Jordan Peterson fills, and that gap. And now either the atheistic community fills that gap. I'm not saying they're supposed to.
No, it doesn't have to be. The gap will get filled automatically with the market.
Well, let's see. I'm open.
We've already seen. We've seen it happening. Like, look,
Where?
show me the depressed Scandinavians that are jumping off rooftops because they don't have religion. Show me that. It's not happening. It gets filled with other things. People pick up kayaking or something else. People find meanings in many things in life. People find inspiration in music, arts, in science, in love, in traveling. It's not easy to fill. It's not easy to fill that gap, but that's the challenge. That's the thing is that whatever you fill that gap with, it's you finding it, you working hard in evaluating who you are and recognizing that that gap is a different shape for every different person. And once you empty that gap, you will try to fill it in with exactly the shape that it requires to be filled. And it's a good thing. It's a hard process, but people manage it because they have to.
So what do you think is the Landmark Forum?
What do you mean?
The Landmark Forum is a very secular organization, but I just for fun, I don't know if you guys know about it. It's basically character building workshops and how to be a good communicator.
That sounds great.
Yeah. But
I mean, as long as it's not based on bullshit. Well, I mean,
when I went there, I could just see religion all over, written all over it, but it pretended not to be like religion. That's all.
Okay, so that's a problem, because here's the thing. Here's another thing. I can basically get the three of us together, right, and come up with the best workshop based on the best understanding, based on best practices, for us to figure out how to find meaning, communicate our greatest fears, and figure out a way to character build or whatever, find purpose, meaning. Look at books, look at other people's experiences, look at the greatest studies, go see other people's practices, and based on evidence, knowledge, and trial and error, we come up with a very good tool, and then get other people to come join our community and teach them our methods, right? All of that sounds great. Now, if I all of a sudden put like a cross on top of all this stuff, that even though I had nothing to do with the Bible, we never opened the Bible, we never did anything religious, but now that people are joining in, I'm putting a cross and calling it a church, even though I'm not using any Christian scripture to do all of this. Now, you know what I've done now? Now I've become a PR front from an ancient, harmful, barbaric ideology, just by putting that cross in front of everything, or putting a Islamic symbol somewhere, or a Shia or Sunni symbol, whatever, a symbol on it, right? Now, I could have done all of that without becoming the PR front from some harmful ideology. It would have been better if I did all that without actually promoting nonsense. But go on, sorry.
What would be a good comparison is when you make this ideology, and in one study group you put the cross on it, and in another study group you don't put the cross on it, and then you see the registrations in both the groups. Right. I'm willing to bet my money the one with the cross on it will have more members.
Yes,
that's my whole point.
I agree with you, and I have a perfect example for this, and I came up with this example. I have examples for everything, because I get these arguments a lot. Right? I'll go through this one very quickly. I don't know if you've heard this example before, but let me just go quickly just for your audience. Imagine that you have like a doctor, right? She happens to arrive at this village, and she sees in this village there's a disease that is killing a lot of people, right? And she recognizes the disease, and she makes the medicine, and she tries to sell it to people. She can't just give it away because she needs to get the resources to make more medicine, right? She tried to sell it to people so that she knows it's going to work, but they don't believe her. Nobody's buying her medicine, right? So she comes up with this story. She tells people, look, on my way here, there were some fairies in the forest, and they gave me this potion, and they told me to give this to you. And now people are lining up. People are lining up, and they're buying her medicine. Now she's calling it a potion. And people are buying it, and she makes a lot more medicine, and this disease gets completely eradicated from this village, right? And she goes away, right? And people are like, well, that's a great example. That's why sometimes maybe it's okay to use nonsense for the better good of the village. It helped, right? What's wrong with this? So, but here's the thing: the story doesn't end there. Once she left, other people's now use this fairy example. They come and say they start filling bottles with water, and they say, "Hey, guess what? The fairies also gave me this potion." And they start selling water to people for lots of money, because they tell people that they got it from the forest, from the fairy forest. Some people start putting drugs in it. Because they want people to be joining the army, and if they're on drugs, it's easier for you to raise an army when people are on drugs. And some people start putting poisons in it and selling it to people that they are against, because they want to poison, and they tell we got it for fairies. All of a sudden, this whole fairy concept is easy to sell bullshit to people, because now everybody believes in fairies, and they buy whatever comes out of the fairy forest. The thing is that I acknowledge that it would have been a much harder long-term investment if we actually educated the village and put up advertisements, reached out to people, told them why this medicine works, why they need to take it. That's the returns on your investment would have been much less in the short term, and it would have been harder to get people to buy this medicine that actually works. But the long-term consequences of not selling bullshit is better. Your return on investment of educating people based on what's real and what's teaching them how to distinguish bullshit from fact has a much higher return on investment in the long run. If you're part of selling people bullshit because of short-term investments, in the long run, you're hurting people.
Okay, so I'm not going to use a hypothetical story. I'm going to give you a real life example. So a lot of times people go to the doctor, right? I used to find this very interesting when I used to stay in the West, but I guess, we developing country people, they seem to have a higher threshold when it comes to tolerating sickness. I used to find it very funny when my roommate used to say she's sick and she had just a minor cold, and I used to laugh at it. But anyways, that's besides the point. But, a lot of times you go to the doctor, and doctors are very smart. They know there's nothing really wrong with the patient, right? But they still give them a medicine. And most of the times that medicine is a placebo. Now, do you think the doctor is being unethical?
Okay. Well, no. Okay. So placebo is being sold on purpose. People know that they're giving it.
Not every time. Not every time. Now, a lot of times when you go to a doctor, the doctor does not say it's a placebo. The doctor says it's an actual medicine.
No. But the thing is that we scientifically know that placebos work, right? But the thing is that when you're giving placebos to a patient, you're not telling them, you're not giving them a bullshit worldview about the universe, right? You're actually telling them that this medicine is going to work, and they're not lying about that. It is going to work. Placebos work.
And in the case of your story, the fairy was the placebo.
No, the fairy was not the placebo. The fairy is a lie, giving you an entire world.
But Armin, if a doctor says to me this medicine will work,
right, which is scientifically proven that it works,
but it's not working for the reasons I think it's going to work, and he knows that.
Right, but it's going to
So,
work.
so it's like a white lie or a half lie. If I say to you this medicine is going to work, not because of placebo, but because it's got some chemical in it that will, whatever, stabilize your condition, whatever.
Well, yeah, but doctors. Okay,
See what I'm
first of
saying?
all, doctors don't tell you that this is a medicine that has it. They don't tell you lies, right? They just give you the placebo. Just say take this. This is going to help you do this and this, and it will.
Yeah, but
Just
okay.
yeah.
Sorry. So what's happening here is that the doctor is tricking the patient's body into thinking you are getting better. The
Right.
same way Kushal is saying that religious language or symbology is tricking the human being into thinking my life is more meaningful, or that this action that I'm doing is better or more moral. Now we can say it's all bullshit. Fine. We all agree it's bullshit. Great. But we have to understand the limitations of the human body and the human mind. The same way we trick the body into saying you're doing very good, keep going, we can trick the mind into saying, you know what, this is really good. This human rights. It's really good. Whatever. It's true.
The thing is that the parts of the religion that we say that actually helps people, those parts that does not require any lies. We know that we can be completely honest about that. We know we need a community. We know we need a sense of awe and a sense of belonging. We know we need inspiration, right? We know we need to have a sense of significance, right? Those parts of religions that are actually the promises that they make, the fact that we need those does not require us lying about anything. We can be completely honest about that. We do need those things. And we have better ways of providing those things without lying to people.
Okay, so that's good enough for you. Yeah, so that's good enough for you as an atheist. It's not good enough for them as a theist. 2, we know we can get better when we have a minor cold without taking a medicine. We know we can get better, that our cough can get cured most of the times without going to a doctor. We know we can get better, that even if we don't put the magic spray when we have a slight ache, it's going to go away anyways, but we still do it. If we do it then, it's okay then. Why it's not okay here?
Wait, okay, so first, if you're saying, I'm not saying you're saying people are illogical and not everybody could be mature
selectively
enough.
Illogical. People are compartmentalizing themselves. I'm not saying people are illogical in everything. So let's take an example. Now, there are amazing atheists in this world who are logical when it comes to analyzing religious beliefs. But the same atheists in this world believe gender is a social construct completely, and even age is a social construct. Recently, I shared a very interesting tweet with my good friend Walid here. He'll vouch for it. A very well-known atheist in India said age is a social construct. We can call ourselves 2 years old. So we are partially irrational in many ways.
So we're talking about two different things, right? So we're talking about people's capacity to move on beyond religion, and what's the most effective way to address people's needs. The thing, you guys are saying there are some people that are not going to they're not going to be religion free. They're always going to think that they need God, that they need religion. What do you think I'm prescribing? Do you think I'm prescribing going to them and tell them that they need to cut it out? They force it on them? Of course, this is not an all or none game. People are going to remain religious. Many people, no matter what you tell them, are going to believe in God, right? That's not going to change. But this is not an all or none game. I'm talking about the best methods. I'm talking about the best strategies that is going to get us from the 2% to the 5%, from the 5% to the 12%. I'm saying the best strategy is to be honest to people. I'm saying the best strategy is to not delude people. Yes, people are going to remain delusional. Don't add to it. Don't sell them another delusion. Be part of bringing people out of delusion rather than a force instilling one delusion over another.
Okay, Armin, this is again. I think this is a very good discussion we're having. Actually, I'm personally learning a lot out of it.
Thank you.
So here's my counter again. I completely agree with you. Most people are not going to come out of this delusion. So while we are accepting, both of us accept that most human beings are going to stay religious, the least we can do is, when somebody does offer the nuanced buga buga, which is not going to kill me, I would take him any day over the guy running the plane into the building. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying it's better. I'm saying,
well, I would say it's better. I would say it's better, but I'm okay. So I'm not saying the guy that wants to behead me, I am equally against that person as somebody that says, hey, I believe the cookie monster under my bed is okay with atheists, right? Obviously, right? Obviously, the second guy seems like a more easier guy to get along with, even though his cookie monster is booga booga. What I'm saying is that the force that gets people to get people to say, like, hey, maybe this text that is telling people to behead apostates, maybe this means make them a ham sandwich. I don't know. Maybe that's what it really means, right? Maybe the whatever got them to force them in that position was not an actual honest analysis of the text. It was people like us that kept on challenging religion. It was people like us that were a force against religion. It was never from inside religion that people are looking at as those trying desperately to look at these texts differently. It was people that were hostile towards religious ideas that is forcing people into a position to make such nonsensical arguments that these texts mean something else.
So I mean, what would you say about the Mu'tazila? Because they were from inside the religion and they were rationalists. And of course, I'm not saying they were 100% rational.
Actually, they weren't. First of all, they were influenced by Greek philosophers, right? They looked at Socrates and were like, "Oh, this seems like a lot more. This makes a lot more sense. This is based on logic rather than heavenly authority. Can we have some of that, please?" Right? So they were also influenced by outside.
But I mean, human beings are influenced by everything. I don't understand why
that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying don't reduce Muslims to just Muslims. Just because Muslims can mature above Islam, don't give credit. It's not because of Islam. It's in spite of Islam.
Armin, I've never said it's because of Islam. I mean, that's not even an argument that anyone said.
I'm not against. Yeah, but I'm not against that. Muslims reforming, which to me means Muslims living less according to Islam, it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
but what I'm suggesting is you don't call that Islamic reform. Call that Muslims reforming. That's Muslims reforming. That's not Islam.
What
reforming.
If we were to call it Islamic? Islam is okay. Or what about Islam is morphing? Things can change.
As long as Islam has anything to do with the Hadith and Quran, then what is it that is changing? Is it Islam? Is an Islamic that is less Quranic? Is that your Islam?
No. So, for example, let's say, we certain scholars say they stress certain verses over others or certain hadiths over others, and say this was useful back then. Maybe it's not useful now.
So
and they're not saying it's. Sorry.
So it's kind of like me taking Mein Kampf, okay. Yeah. And be just like, hey, let's not throw out the baby out with the bathwater. Let me just find something kind of okay with here, and just keep pointing out that comes from the Mein Kampf there. And the problem with that is now I'm making an excuse for this fucking book. If I do that, if the thing is, when people are looking at some verses that are better than some other verses and putting an emphasis on that, we know that's because their moral compass is better than the Quran. Right, but when we know that their moral compass is better than the Quran, that moral compass, we need to acknowledge that moral compass deserves the credit, because when you give the credit to the book for that moral guidance, then you are now the PR front for all the other shit that is in there. This is basically what it sounds like to me when you say, okay, so I'm a reformist. Why don't we agree the same arguments for a reformist Nazi then? Why can't we say, like, hey, I'm going to reform Nazism. To me, Nazism, it doesn't mean hating the Jews. Nazism actually the true message of Nazism promotes equality. Nazism is very gay friendly, equality among all races. Hitler was a great person. He wanted to promote peace and prosperity. And you were like, okay, what's wrong with that? Let's promote this Nazism instead of the other Nazism. I'm like, no, Nazism is dying. Why are you bringing it back? This is a French thing. This guy is going to be used as an excuse, as a cover for a shit ton of bullshit in here. Who would support a reformist Nazi argument? Who would support that? Would you guys support that if somebody wants to bring back Nazism, but a reformed version of Nazism that is less harmful than the original one?
Okay.
Nazis.
Here's my question. See, the problem isn't whether Muslims. The problem isn't religious people should be credited as individuals, not the religion itself. The problem is religious people don't want to take the credit themselves as individuals. They want to credit the religion. That's how the religious mind works. Now we can either accept how the religious mind works, or we deny it.
I don't accept that.
See, this is where I disagree with you, because that's how the religious mind works. The religious mind wants to credit something beyond itself. That's how.
First of all,
the best example. Sorry. I mean, there's even a joke about this. That when there's a doctor who's doing an operation, they spend hours and hours doing the operation and surgery, and then the guy goes, "Thank God," I mean,
it's so obvious.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, not any two Muslims are alike. Okay,
we understand, but generally, especially
that's the general religious psyche. That's the psyche of the religious person. Whatever good happens, credit God. Whatever bad happens, credit yourself.
Okay, again, Muslims are not just Muslims. There are many things other than Muslims.
But there is a very strong narrative that whatever good happens, you have, like, for example, if my mom makes food and I say, "Oh, that was very good," I say, "Thank you for making it." She goes, "But thank God as well." It's just there.
It's just a saying. Like, okay, in Iran, okay, every time you do something good or something clever, they say "Mashallah." Right?
Yeah.
So that means thank God. Like, they're giving the credit to God, even though I fucking work hard on this. I got it 100% of this grade, and they're saying, "Great job, Allah." Fuck Allah. I studied so hard for this shit. But the thing is, they don't mean mashallah. Mashallah has turned into something to give credit to you. It just became something that they just say. Even though they're mentioning Allah, they're actually saying good job to you, even though they're mentioning Allah. Muslims are people. They're just like everybody else. They want credit. They have egos. Okay, yes, the Islamic narrative makes them different, like affects them a lot and in a negative way, in the wrong direction, but their all internal nature and other things also makes them move away from that. Everyone wants credit. You think Muslims don't have ego? You think that
of course
what?
No.
You think they don't do things because they want credit? You know how you think that all the Muslims that are studying in universities is not because they want jobs, because they want to feel good about themselves. They don't want to, that's human nature. Islam is a very powerful meme, but it's not as powerful as human nature. You can't get rid of ego. But anyways, I mean, the whole point of giving Muslims credit is not just to boost their ego, as I mentioned, is to acknowledge where the source of change is coming from. But
in fact, that has been my biggest battle with religious people all my life. I think humility is highly overrated, and I've always had this problem all my life. And I find this cutting across religious people. I'm surprised you've not observed this, and it bothers me all the time that anything good happens, they start crediting the imaginary creature that has nothing to do with it.
It's fake humility, because even when you're acting like you're humble, it's actually a way for you to get noticed that you're humble. It's a source of, that's also part of the ego. Like, hey, like, oh, good job. Hey, like when you say don't thank me, thank Allah, that's basically saying, look how good of a Muslim I am. That's also that's
virtue signaling.
Yeah, that's also against humility. That's like, hey, please notice me that I'm humble. That's basically like Trump saying I'm the most humble person you've ever seen.
Trump never says that, by the way.
I heard him say that directly on TV. But anyways, the point. But I've had success with telling them that actually I think you're a good person, not because of Islam, but because you're a good person. I've seen people smile when I tell them that, right? Like secretly trying to hide a smile when you tell them that you just think that they're just a really decent human being, and that's why they're a good person. You could actually, that's a very powerful weapon. You could use people's pride to tell them like, no, I don't think you. I think you deserve credit, not the Quran. You're just a good person. People want to be acknowledged. I know a lot of people will pretend otherwise, and some people are being honest about it. But most people, I think, they do want the credit.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah.
agree with you. I use it all the time too, but in my experience, at least, maybe our culture is different in India. My I can only go by my cultural experience, right? So in
Right.
my culture, there is this, veneer of humility all around us. We have to be humble. Starting with our greeting, which is Namaste. It's very, bow down to the humility. Bow down to the divine on the other side. And I'm not
But
saying I have any problem
But
with
do
the
people
greeting per
really
se.
mean that when they say that? Like, for example, in Iran, when we say goodbye, we say Khuda Hafiz, right? Which means God protect you, right? But when we say it's such a big part of the language that nobody's thinking about God when they're saying Khuda Hafiz, right? That even though they actually are uttering the name of God when they're saying goodbye to each other, it doesn't actually cross our mind that we're actually mentioning God when we're saying goodbye. We actually just think we're saying goodbye. That's all we're saying, even though we're technically saying God protect you. You know what I mean?
But then, would you tell them, if you tell them, why are you saying may God protect me? You don't need to say that. Uh, I
They
don't
would just
need
say
it.
it's just. They would just say it's just a saying.
And
Get over
but
it.
they could also say, right? They could also say, but I want God to protect you, right? They could also say
No,
that.
no, they
It's an
won't.
individual choice.
But they won't. That's not what they think. That's not what they would say. They was just like, I don't know why I say that. It's just how I say goodbye. That's what the most common response is going to be. Just
It
like
could
people.
be.
No, I know it is. I'm from there. Just like when people say Thursday, they're not thinking about the god Thor. That's how big how part of the language it is, right? That they don't even think about the fact that
Sure.
they're mentioning God. Like,
So, guys,
yeah.
unless you've got some other points to add, would it be okay if we take some questions before?
Yes, let's do that.
So, I want to take some questions
But
from the.
unless you wanted to add something because
Yeah,
about
give it.
reform. Any more points about Islamic reform?
No, I just wanted to get your point of view. I think, I mean, I don't agree with your point of view, to be very honest. I still don't agree with it, but it's fair enough. I would conclude it by saying that I think there is a space for people like you who believe, smash the edifice of religion totally. I mean, I think I don't fall in that camp. I say smash the booga booga and let people use what they want to use it. But I think there's space for both of us.
Wait, but you want to smash the booga booga, and religion is a subcategory of booga booga.
I think booga booga is a subcategory of religion. Religion has much more to offer than that, right? It has moral philosophy. It has a lot of things, right? Depends on what we want to call religion.
Okay, so there is part of religion I want to keep, but not the philosophy. Okay, anything so-called philosophical in religion is absolute nonsense. But the part of religion I want to keep, if you get rid of the belief part, everything else is great. As long as here's the thing, Harry Potter is great. It only becomes a problem if you start believing that this is real, right? If then you might say kids like packing up and trying to go find Hogwarts, and now they're going to get lost in the woods, right? So, but you can enjoy Harry Potter as much as you want if you don't actually believe that it's real. So, if without the belief part, Islam, Christianity, ancient Mayan religion, Greek religions, Egyptian religions, Viking religion. I mean, you know what's worse than Islam? If it was still around, Viking religion was fucking bad. I mean, now when we look at it from a distance, it's so much fun. It's cool. Like their gods are cool. But their ideology was the only way to get to Valhalla was to die in battle. That's worse than the Shahadat in Islam. Like, yeah, in Islam, at least if you die in war, that's the best way to go to heaven. But it's not the only fucking way to go to heaven. Many Vikings believe that the only way to go to Valhalla was to die in battle. Imagine how much violence we would have right now if that was what people believed in. Anyways, but it's dead. Nobody believes in it, so it's fun. You can look at it. It's cool. It's a part of history. Nobody seriously believes in it. If Islam is, I mean, right now it's hard to make it fun because so many people are being harmed by it. But it would be so much fun if people didn't believe in it. It's actually really cool from a historical perspective, right?
So what I would like Islam to become is like WWE. We know it's fake, but it's there to entertain us anyways.
Yeah, I mean, also inform us, but because religion teaches us about humans, not from its text, but from the fact that it's like there's nothing within the text that is teaching us anything valuable, but the survival of these memes teach us something about us. So it also educates us.
Yeah, but for those memes to survive, we need the carriers of those memes too. So we will always need religious people, right?
No, well, I mean, even if they all die right now as a belief system, we have history to study. Like religion teaches us something about us, not in the same way that religious people learn from religion, right? Religious people think like there's some divine authority within the text. God is trying to tell us something. That's how they try to learn from religion. But historians and psychologists and many other people try to learn from religion based on the way humans interacted with religion and why some of them died, why some of them survived. There's a lot to learn from that. But looking from religion from that perspective is way more helpful if you actually don't believe that there's anything divine about it.
Okay, can we get to questions? So I've got a question for Kushal. I think someone asked you before, what is the major threat to India right now?
Wait. Somebody in the live chat, Muhammad in the live chat is saying, bro, we gladly die to get away from you. Is he talking about us? That's pretty intense. But go on.
If you want to get away from us, mate, you can just turn off the live stream. You don't have to go to that. You don't have to go to that extreme, that extent to get away from us. You can just press the off button. But to each their own. But Kushal, I think the question was, what's the biggest threat facing India? There was something about the Naxalites, the Salafis, and I think BJP, RSS. I can't exactly remember, but in your opinion, what's the biggest threat facing India?
None of them are the biggest threat to India. The biggest threat to India is socialism and this obsession with identity-based politics in India. I believe the day the Indian political landscape, I know it's very interesting that in India we call the BJP right wing. I don't know what's so fucking right wing about the BJP. It's very entertaining to me as someone who is involved in politics in India. So it's very entertaining personally. I think the biggest threat to India is socialism, which is enshrined in the constitution, and that's what has kept us poor all these years. I mean, India has changed as a country only after the reforms in 1992, where we really got market reforms and we got the good stuff. I mean, imagine I was born in 1981. I clearly remember to even get a two-wheeler. Armin, imagine we had a waiting period of 1 year to get a two-wheeler.
No.
Wow.
It was that bad. When we would not get phone lines, and since the market reforms have happened, India has changed. So I think most changes in life happen when people start making money, they start working, and then they stop giving a fuck about everything else. So I would want India to be more capitalist. That is the major problem in India. And identity politics, whether it's caste-based or religion-based or any kind, all this, these are just fucking hashtags on Twitter, the urban Naxal, or I'm not denying there are these are problems, but if you were to ask me what is the major problem of India, I would say abandoning socialism, adopting market reforms, not blind market reforms. Redistributionism, I'm not entirely against it. I am for helping poor people out, but that's something that's far more important to me than all these stupid Twitter battles.
Okay, fair enough.
I actually agree with you on that. I'm also a free market capitalist, and I think that a lot of people think those ideas matter more than talking about religious ideas. My answer is that a lot of these religious consumption with religious ideas is also holding us back from talking about things that matter. Like we need to defeat. I mean, if people are talking about the fact that 2,000 years ago, a carpenter was nailed to a cross and he was the creator of the universe, I don't think we have to pass that to be able to become as a human race to be mature enough to talk about much more complex ideas.
I agree.
I'm not denying that. I was just saying because the question was about, that's my problem.
No,
Yeah.
I was just wanted to add to it, but I totally agree with you, and that is one of the main sources of suffering. I mean, capitalism has brought more people out of poverty than anything else. But go on.
By the way, Armin, I don't know if you know that the preamble of the Indian Constitution says we are a socialist and secular republic. So every politician who believes in free markets in India, they take the oath when they enter the parliament on the Constitution. They're basically liars.
Oh no. Okay, that's hard.
Well, there you go. That's a bit of booger in the Constitution. So the next question is for Armin. It's from James. He says, "Hi Armin, I sent you a question on the Atheist Republic about whether denying Muslim reform and criticizing the whole of Islam, rather than just traditionalist Islam, will push moderate Muslims to find closer solidarity with traditionalists and Salafis because they feel threatened. How do you avoid that when you criticize Islam, especially in Western countries where Muslims feel threatened by anti-Muslim bigotry?"
Okay, first of all, we're not denying people reform. Saying why one method works better than the other one is not stopping people to try reform. Nobody's forcing anybody to not reform Islam. We're not showing up at reformist people's houses with guns telling them to cut it out, right? So nobody's denying reformers. We're trying to tell them that what method works better than the other one. Is convincing them. Second of all, the so-called Muslim reformers, most of them are great people, right? And you don't have to agree with people 100% to be able to work with them, right? If somebody is fighting for secularism, if somebody is fighting for gay rights, if somebody is fighting for women's rights, if somebody is fighting for democracy, I'm not going to be telling them, well, you're a Muslim reformer, so I can't work with you. No, we could disagree on something and work with each other for a common goal on something else completely. You don't have to agree with people for you to be able to unite with people on other topics. So the problem with Muslim reformers are they do all those good things. They just want to give credit to Islam for it. I don't want to give credit to Islam for it. But while we're doing those things, we can work with each other. If they are pushing for more women's rights or more gay rights or whatever rights or whatever value we're fighting for, I'm happy to work with them in that common cause, and I hope they accept me, even though I shit on Islam. And they do. A lot of them do accept. There are Muslims that know how much I shit on Islam and still are happy to work with me on common goals. Right? It is possible. It is possible to passionately disagree on something and still work with each other towards common goals.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that we had a super chat. I missed it. It was by Uday, who said, "Armin wants two separate Shruti and Smriti in religion." I don't understand that comment.
I don't understand.
Okay, so I'll explain that. So Hinduism has a concept where Shrutis are what are the Shrutis and Smritis. There are two kinds of books in Hinduism. Shrutis are the Vedas and the Upanishads. Those are the texts that are not changed, and those are primarily, most of them are the metaphysical claims of the different sects within Hinduism. Smritis are books that are basically the rules that used to govern society at that kind of place. Now, Smritis can be rejected, changed, burnt, thrown in the gutter according to Hinduism. So I don't know what Uday is trying to ask, and I don't know why would even Armin have to answer that. I'm trying to assume what Uday is trying to say to Armin. What Uday is trying to say is, in Christianity and Islam, what Hindus would say is the Shruti and the Smriti both, right? The way to live your life and the metaphysical claims both are mixed together, unlike in Hinduism where they're separated. And the ways to live your life are changeable according to the time and place, and you can update yourself. The metaphysics don't change. That's what he's trying to say. Now, in Quran and in Christianity and in Islam, the problem is that even the Smriti cannot be changed, and I'm assuming that's what Uday was trying to say. So if Uday is not trying to say that, I apologize, Uday. I don't know.
Fair enough. That's a very interesting point. Question here saying, will India survive as a secular state if Muslims become more than 50% of its population?
No.
Most, well, when he says the person, sorry, he, she, z, zer, whatever,
Yeah.
whosoever is questioning this, when they say Muslims, what kind of Muslims? Are the Muslims that exist currently in India, in the current kind state, and which state of India? Is he trying to say the Muslims in Kerala or the Muslims in Uttar Pradesh?
He just said if Muslims. So I mean, whatever. If the Muslim population grew across the board to 50%, would it be secular? Armin is saying no.
No, I don't think so. It will be.
Really?
India is only secular, liberal, democratic until India has this demographic dividend.
Okay. I mean, look at United Kingdom is already, what percentage Muslims you guys in UK?
It's just, people say, think it's like 50. It's like five, is it 5 or 6? I can't. Let me check actually.
Yeah, you're already introducing blasphemy laws based on 5 or 6% in the UK. So
Yeah.
I don't know what chance.
Oh, it's
India
4.4%. 4.4%. That was in 2011. So
I would like to. I mean, here I would like to stand up for Muslims in India. Please don't call me an apologist, but this is my experience, Armin, and you can call me biased towards my Indian Muslims. So, but in my personal experience, when I used to live in Canada, and Waleed will vouch for this, I have said this offline many times to Waleed too. I think Indian Muslims are not that radicalized in terms of my experience, and I've met Muslims across the world. They are not as radicalized, and they are still rooted to a lot of Indian value systems of pluralism and openness. I think they are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about how the meme works once it gets to a certain percentage of people, right? But obviously the people are the carriers of the meme. So maybe you're right. Maybe the culture and other influence on people that are nominally Muslim makes it harder for the meme to be able to take advantage of them. I mean, UK is getting dealt with the worst hand when it comes to the type of I mean, the ghetto culture and everything really doesn't help. I mean, even in Canada, I think we're getting a better quality of Muslims than compared to the UK right now, especially because we have a sea between us and the Islamic world. So the filtering process is much easier. So yeah, it is. I'm not judging. It's not a judgment on the people. It's mostly how the meme operates. But I acknowledge that the way the culture that people have does influence how the meme operates. So you're probably right, but 50% is a big number. Just like
I agree. If it reaches 50%, it's not even 50%. If it reaches 35 to 40%, democracy in India is over, and you'll see me in Canada. I mean,
but on a serious note, so
you agree with me then?
I agree with you, but I still, I guess I'm a hopeless optimist. So.
No, okay, but let me tell. Okay, I think I'm actually worse than you. Then you think the amount of hostility I have to Islam, a lot of people assume that I'm anti-Muslim. In fact, I am. When it comes to people, I am such an apologist that it's actually disgusting to even some Muslims. Here's how extreme I am on both of these ends. When it comes to Islam as an idea, I think Islam needs to be destroyed. It needs to die. It needs to end. Okay? When it comes to Muslims as people, this is how extreme I am on this end. When like the example I give is that when there's a suicide bombing, right? When they are counting the number of the victims, I usually say there's often missing one person when they're counting the number of the victims. And I say it's the suicide bomber, because that person's life was lost to Islam way before the day of the suicide bombing. And I say that person was also a victim. And I feel sorry for the suicide bomber there as well. And a lot of people say, well, that's going too far. You're now an ISIS sympathizer. Sympathizer?
Yeah.
Sympathizer.
Yeah.
You're not.
But no, but yeah, I mean, when it comes, I acknowledge people. People are, each one of us, if we were born in the right conditions, we might have been an ISIS supporter right now, right? Our mind is, we all have a sense of, we all think we're more logical than we are, but our mind works in a very weird ways. We are very much influenced by our upbringing, by our culture, by the ideas that we were exposed to. And people, a lot of people say, well, I have higher expectations of people. Well, I don't. The number of the amount of people that actually think and analyze things is a very small percentage of the entire population. And the fact that most of us don't doesn't mean we should look at the rest of us with disgust. We should look at the rest of us with sympathy. I mean, if we don't look at a cat and tell them that, oh, this cat doesn't think about philosophy and politics, so fuck it, fuck this cat. No, if we can have sympathy towards animals that don't think about these things, why can't we have sympathy towards our fellow human beings? The expectation that people have of their fellow human beings to be all smart and logical, analyze things, given how much we're influenced by our genetics and by environment, makes me be more sympathetic even to the most lost people. But go ahead.
But I mean, do you think demography is destiny, though?
Well, I'm a determinist, so
yes.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that people then people say, like, okay, so you're not holding people accountable. Is that what you're getting at?
No. What I'm trying to say is that while you and I, actually, we are very similar in this process, that we are very sympathetic, but at the same time, we are very clear when somebody asks us that if the percentage of Muslims increases beyond a certain point, the probabilities of democracy surviving in that particular area are very low. So what I'm trying to say is, so in a way, you do agree with the concept that demography is destiny, right?
I mean, how could it not influence? I mean, if destiny, as in
the destination, the goal is eventually that we all want democracy, secularism, and liberalism in our societies. So if the demography changes in a certain way, right, that demography is a threat to secularism, liberalism.
I don't know if I want to talk about it as demographic, because I do think you can change the ideas of a demographic of people.
Absolutely.
So even if the demography doesn't change, the ideas can change. I mean, the demography of Europe didn't change, but the Enlightenment values changed the ideas of people without changing the people.
True.
Right? Yeah.
True.
Okay. Question here is okay, hang on, sorry. So I just want to ask you a question on that point. If, for example, in Europe, there are more Muslims, like in UK, in France, in Germany, so on and so forth. Let's skip forward 50 years in the future, and there's, let's say, 10 to 15% Muslims in the UK. Do you think that the quality of the democracy will deteriorate at a far quicker rate than it is now, specifically because of Muslims?
Yes.
If that is the case, what do you think we should do right now?
We should talk to Muslims. We should reach out to Muslims, and we need to defeat Islam. Okay, and people think that's. Yeah.
Okay, so before you go there, I'm saying that's the long game. That's like 50, 100 years.
That's the only game that we can play.
No, but I'm saying right now, in the process, you might lose a couple of countries here and there, or if you don't lose them, you could really compromise the quality and, have many other negative effects. I'm saying, when you hear the people and saying we need to stop Muslims from coming into the country, if that works, that's a much more effective way in securing this land or this country than saying, let's go out and try and convince them Islam isn't true.
Well, I mean, most Muslims are nominal Muslims, right? So they act as carriers of a disease rather than being infected by the disease.
Sure, I mean, but nevertheless, having less Muslims in the country by saying, right, you know what, we're not going to...
But the thing is that the nominal Muslims are the easiest ones I can reach out to get seeds of doubts in. The thing is, I think you need to screen by values, right? Rather than by religion, I guess. You know what I mean?
Let's say, okay, so what if we say we're not going to have any people from Muslim majority countries?
I think you shouldn't have anybody that thinks that is not for gay rights, for example, or not for.
Yeah, but you could just lie. You can just say I am, and once you get in, I mean, even if you genuinely are, you can change your mind.
So here's what I think you should do. And again, I'm not an immigration expert, so I have no fucking idea if this is the best way. So don't listen to this. This is just what I think it might be. But I think that what you do is you just screen for, based on what your country needs, based on a certain skill set, and based on certain education, and also certain level of activism or volunteer work or something like that, right? Because it's really hard to dedicate your entire. You could be like, hey, I'm for gay rights. You could lie about that, right? But it's really hard for you that if you're educated and you're an expert in, I don't know, computer engineering, and also you have volunteer work and some activism, and you seem to be fighting for human rights and all of that. I mean, even if you're a nominal Muslim, I think if you have that in your resume, that's pretty decent. You should be able to come in, and it should be based on student visas and work visas rather than just open borders. I think if you have like that kind of a screening process, you should be fine. Again, I don't know. This could be completely hogwash. So I'm not an immigration expert, but it just seems like that's the best screening criteria to have.
Actually, I would like to add to that. Walid, it's a very simple solution. I think any population that migrates into another country will behave, according to the larger memeplex that controls the society, and how much that society wants to defend those values. Now, every society has to define its non-negotiables. I'm not saying non-negotiables of every society are going to be the same. Maybe, a society like Saudi Arabia, their non-negotiable will be atheism is not allowed. But the point is, if you are a democratic, secular, liberal society, any new migrant that comes in needs to be told in clear-cut language that, look, you've come here, we say bad things about religion. You don't like it, get the fuck out of here. If you come here, we believe in democracy. We believe homosexuals have a right to live their life the way they want to live. If you don't like it, get the fuck out of here.
No, but that's not going to work.
The problem in the West is they've stopped saying that.
No, they say, even if they say that a million times, people could be like, yeah, fuck off. I'm going to come to this country anyways. Like, they can listen to you and still come to your country. I think the screening criteria needs to be tougher. It needs to be based on actual...
I'm not saying the screening should not be there, but I think in spite of the screening, I think what's missing in the discourse in the West right now is the West has stopped talking about its non-negotiables. That's what they've stopped doing. In their tremendous white guilt, they have stopped talking about their non-negotiables. It happens in every democratic nation. And I don't know why Muslims are given a free pass in every country. And it's as if they can do anything they want to. And, nobody's going to say anything. I think it's stupid.
Actually, can I tell you something that supports what you're saying? In Canada, we removed from our citizenship booklet exam, right? The idea that female genital mutilation is wrong.
Allah. Allah.
Because we wanted to
Trudeau, man, that guy.
We wanted to be more culturally accepting.
Oh my God!
So Canada was my backup plan.
But culturally accepting is more important than women's clitoris.
My God, that is terrible, man. Okay, so guys, should we wrap it there? It's been 3 hours, and I know Kushal is on the verge of passing out.
Yes. Thank you so much, by the way. I think you did the biggest sacrifice here among the three of us.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much, Kushal. Honestly, it's a massive, mammoth effort for you to stay awake and say things coherently and still say booga booga when it was required.
Where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter @Kushal_Mehra, or you can go on my podcast, which is the Charbaka podcast. So if you want to understand Indian politics and Indian issues, you should actually go visit my YouTube page. You'll probably get the other perspective, which is not the left-wing perspective of India, because I talk to the non-left of India.
That's great. And
lovely.
Also, thank you so much to Vidz for making these conversations possible. You did so much effort. Now, seriously, again, your channel is a platform for some very interesting discussions, and you bring the most interesting people. And making these conversations possible. So you're awesome, man.
Bro, thanks so much, man. Honestly,
I actually want to thank Veedu too. Walid, thanks a lot. And Armin, this has been a great pleasure. I found your questions whenever. See, I saw all your videos where you talk about Hinduism, and I always felt that you were genuinely curious. So I really enjoyed this.
But yeah, and I also learned. I also wish that you learned more from you, because the amount that I learned was very valuable, and I know I need to educate myself more, given that Atheist Republic is fights Islam, Christianity, Judaism, but Hinduism is like, I don't know, a lot of people don't like calling it religion, but it's the third largest religion, and given that you do attack Hinduism, I do think that I would like to watch more of your videos and learn more from you, to do it, to get my team to do it more properly, maybe, and do it from a more effective, coming from a more knowledge based perspective. So would be, I mean, if you're available, I would like to sometimes pick your brain and ask you questions if you're available.
Anytime. I'm always there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Guys, thank you both of you for agreeing to do this. I think it's a massive step forward in the conversation, and I want to thank both of you for your contributions, your time, your questions, and obviously the people that are watching this as well for their questions and for the super chats. I really, really appreciate it. I've honestly learned so much from both yourself, and both you challenged my ideas, and I've had you on before, and I'd love to have you on again. So thank you, and please follow Armin on the Atheist Republic. He's also doing some work with the Pangburn
secular
philosophy
judges and secular
and this man has probably 4 or 5 jobs, and some people can't even get one. Hint, hint. I'm just joking. So what I'm saying is this man is all over the place. You can't miss him. Secular jihadist, Pangburn is Atheist Republic, so you can check him out. Facebook, social media, Twitter. Same with Kushal Mehra. He's doing so much, having amazing conversations, and coming from India as a Dharmic skeptic. So thank you both of you. Thank you everyone at home, wherever you are, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
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 Say